This is a meeting of the Town of Norton Zoning Board of Appeals. We have a number of items on the agenda tonight, so we're going to work as quickly as we can, but 6 or 7 items, so please be patient. The agenda is here, so if anybody is last on the agenda and you want to take a walk, you're welcome to do that. Tonight, I am going to sit as a permanent member. Mr. Wozniak is a permanent member, and Mr. Wren, correct, is the third permanent member. So we'll be the members who will be voting on the matters that come before us tonight. With us tonight also is Mr. Carmichael, the town building inspector, and town council, Amy Quessel. Should we have any questions? The first item on the agenda is the application concerning 122 East Hodges Street. The owners are Paul and Jean. Is it Sariato? Sorry?
Yes.
Thanks. Are you Mr. Sariato?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. And you have somebody speaking for you?
Yes.
Who are you, sir?
Craig Suganowski, Rim Engineering. Existing farmhouse on a very large piece of property, but the house was built right next to what used to more than likely have been the farm cart path, which is now East Hodges Street. The buildings in the back are part of the original farm, but we're not doing anything back there. They're just shown to show all the existing buildings on the property. We'd like to put a 2-car garage with a breezeway connected to the house. We're putting it on the right-hand side because, one, that's where the driveway comes in, but also, two, we have wetlands resource areas to the westerly side. We have the Meadow Brook, which is actually considered a river, so we're trying to stay as far from the 200 feet of the river as we can. And also the wetlands resource along the riverbank. So we'll be within 91 feet from the wetlands. We haven't filed with conservation yet, but we will be doing that soon.
So anything that happens tonight is contingent on that, of course.
Right.
Okay. So this was acquired just in October of 18 by the current owners, but the application states the house was built in 1952, and it looks to me like it's a pre-existing non-conforming use then?
Right.
Existing before the implementation of zoning. So it looks like we'd need a finding under 1.5 and also a variance from, is it 40 feet to 25 feet? Is that correct?
Correct.
Is that what's being sought?
Right.
So those are the issues before us. Are there questions of the board? And this is a large parcel for the record. It's, what's the acreage? 10.98 acres?
Right.
And it looks like there would be a problem seating this on the other side of the house because of the septic.
And the river.
And, oh, that's right, and the wetlands there. Yep. Well, it's close to the septic,
Right.
okay, but you have to go to conservation anyway. Also, the note for the record, there's a well to the back of the structure. So the side line of the to the new construction would be 50 feet. That's plenty of room. The encroachment is is that the southerly, it looks like, corner of the proposed construction, which would be 25 feet from East Hodges Street, and that's the closest point.
Right.
Does anyone have any other questions concerning this?
Is there any living space above the garage, or is it strictly storage? Storage, okay.
Anything else? Is there anybody here to speak in favor of the application as filed? For the record, none, aside from the applicants, of course. Is there anybody else to speak in opposition to the application as filed? For the record, none. Any further discussion by the board? If not, or questions, motion to close the public hearing would be in order.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All those in favor of closing the public hearing presentation? Aye.
Aye.
Then this is in order for two pieces of relief. The first would be under 1.5E, because it's a non-conforming use that existed prior to the implementation of zoning. This is a change, alteration to the use, and the statute asks whether the proposed change would leave the parcel substantially more detrimental to the area in terms of light, noise, activity, and the factors recited in the statute. I don't believe that any of that danger exists and that it would be substantially more detrimental to what's there now, the single-family residence. Is there any
I agree.
I agree, absolutely.
motion is in order for a finding under 1.5E that the proposed construction would not render the property substantially more detrimental to the area in terms of the factors in the statute?
Yes, want to make that motion?
That's up to you. Or you can, or you don't have to. Is there a second?
There's a second.
Okay, any further discussion on that aspect? Hearing none. All those in favor of that finding under 1.5E, and we'll put the language in the right language for the decision, of course. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Next, it would need I think it needs a variance, because the frontage, I'm sorry, not frontage, the front setback in the zone is 40 feet required. The existing house is at 23.4 feet right now, so that's the pre-existing non-conforming condition. Well, actually, I guess it's a matter of judgment whether a new variance would be required for the addition, which is 25 feet back, further than the existing house. We have counsel here. We've granted a variance before simply because this is going to be a new encroachment, though it's not as severe as the current encroachment. I think that's the right way to approach these, correct?
Probably don't need a variance because of the fact that the nonconformity is it's the same setback, or is that side setback?
No, it is. It's the front
Yeah.
yard setback, and the current house is 23 feet. The proposed extension here would be 25 feet back. I always thought because it was a new encroachment, though it's off to the side, variance,
I mean, it's technically what's being encroached upon is the front yard setback,
which is already encroached upon.
right, but,
To a greater degree.
yeah.
So no variance needed. Putting counsel on the spot.
You really are here. Let me see.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to spring this on you.
No, that's okay. Is there anything, it says right here, dimensional requirements, front yard setback for a principal, 40 feet required, 25 feet.
And that is the front yard setback.
Yeah.
That's the only nonconformity.
We've gone back and forth on this before.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I'm listening.
That's the only nonconformity.
And it's a single-family house?
Yes, and it will be a single-family house. This will be a garage
So under
addition.
section 6, single-family house wouldn't need a variance. If, under the Diedrich case, it wouldn't need a variance if it was not creating a new nonconformity,
A greater nonconformity?
a new nonconformity.
Okay,
So a variance for single and two-family homes, a variance is required if you're creating a new nonconformity.
I guess the question I was asking is, does this addition?
That would actually probably be that would actually be a finding, which you already did.
Yeah, correct. But we don't consider that a new nonconformity, then we wouldn't need a variance.
Not unless it encroaches into the side, or if it lot
Doesn't.
coverage,
Not at all. Okay,
I can't think of.
I agree.
so we'll take that off the table. You're all set.
Yep.
We'll issue a decision within the time and have it posted and sent out.
Thank you.
All right, thanks. Next item on the agenda at 7:05 is the application for 263 Reservoir Street. And we have the same gentleman presenting this one as well. This is the application of, stand by. Application of Ryan and Melissa Sarahs, yes? Thank you. And your agent is going to present this to us tonight, correct? Okay. Location of property is 263 Reservoir Street. This is an R60 zoning district. It's a single-family residence. The intention is to add a 18 by 36 addition. And again, the front yard setback is at issue. Yard divided by wetland system to the rear of the house. Large portion, usable area to the north of the wetland. I think that's supposed to say unusable, making it unbuildable. The house is set 7.6 feet from the west property line. Proposed addition designed to fit with the existing interior layout set in front of the existing house in order to be as far from the wetland as can be. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, so this one we have gone to conservation, and they did give us our approval last month. They're just looking to, this is another case where the house is built 7 feet from the property line, almost a little bit over, less than 4 feet to the actual corner of the lot at the house. We can, if we expand on the other side of the house, we're over against Sunset Drive, which is a 20-foot wide public road. It serves the house behind them, and their driveway is accessed through Sunset Drive, but it is only a 14-foot wide gravel road, not a heavily traveled area. The addition conforms to the front yard setback off of Reservoir Street. We're asking for it to be 37.4 from Sunset Drive rather than the 40 required.
So,
The existing house in this case is at 28.2 from Sunset Drive.
so again, Sunset Drive is the, considered the front street, the frontage street?
Their address is Reservoir,
Sunrise Drive, I'm sorry.
Sunrise Drive, right?
Their address is Reservoir.
Their address is Reservoir Street. Their frontage, the legal frontage would be on Sunrise. They only have 70 feet on Reservoir Street, required to have 150.
So frontage is provided on Sunrise. that's
Sunrise Drive.
240 And that's where their driveway is too?
They come in from the back,
From
right
the
next to
back.
the wetlands.
And the proposed addition is to the Reservoir Street side.
Right. Obviously, it would make sense to put it in the back, but we'd be within the buffer zone of the wetlands.
So the date this was constructed,
Is it on the form?
it is not. Date the property acquired was December of 2015.
My memory is the 1940s, when I looked it up, but I thought it was on the form.
Are you familiar, you're familiar with the house there?
Well, we've worked in that area quite a bit. One of the older houses in the area.
Do you have any idea when the house was constructed approximately?
I think part of it was maybe in the 40s, and then maybe another part later. I'm not sure.
Okay. And what is the addition to be used for? Living space or?
Bedrooms.
Is that single story or two?
Single.
So the present encroachment on the frontage is 28.2 feet. The addition would be 37.4 feet. It's kind of similar to the last one we considered. It's not a greater encroachment. And if Reservoir Street is considered a side yard setback, that's 40 feet away, so that's not going to be impacted either.
Right.
Agree?
Agreed.
Agreed.
House was built in 56,
Where do you see that?
assessor's database.
Oh, thank you. Yep, I was just looking at the application itself. So it is a pre-existing non-conforming use. The same question applies. Are there questions from the board to the applicant or the engineer?
This won't be used as an accessory apartment, correct? It's just adding bedrooms to the house?
Just bedrooms,
Single family.
single family.
No further questions?
Any other questions from the board?
I got none.
Is there anybody else here to speak in favor of the application as filed? Hearing none. Anybody here to speak in opposition to the application as filed? For the record, none. Is there a motion to, if there are no other questions or discussion, to close the public hearing?
I'll make the motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 And again, a motion is in order under section 1.5E that the intended construction, the addition, as shown on the plan of record, would not render the parcel substantially more non-conforming than the existing structure that's there, which is also a single-family residence. Is there such a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Any further discussion on that motion? I don't think that this is an issue either. Again, it's unfortunately, the pre-existing non-conforming use is, it looks like 7.6 and 3.8 feet off of the property line to the east, but that was there before, and this is not encroaching that any further.
Right.
And none of the abutters have lodged any complaints or issues with this, though it is a tighter parcel than the last one we considered. I don't think this is an issue we should be concerned with. Agree?
Agreed.
Agreed.
All those in favor of making a finding under 1.5E? Aye?
Aye.
Okay. And again, I don't think that we need a new variance because there's no further encroachment.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Again, thank you very much. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Is it 7:10? It must be. Next on the agenda for 7:10 is the application for 17 Cottage Street, Dennis and Pia Durkin. Are you Mr. Durkin?
Mr. Durkin.
Okay. Come on up. This is,
So we received,
application for 17 Cottage Street, R40 zoning district. The total area of the lot is just over 30,000 square feet, so this is another, I assume, pre-existing non-conforming use due to lot size. The property was acquired, again, just in December of 2018. And the plan of record shows the existing residential structure and the proposed garage workshop as a separate building to be, it looks like, according to the plan, 12 feet off the side property line.
correct.
Frontage is on Cottage Street, and no other encroachments are implicated here, I think. Again, it's an undersized lot. Sir, go ahead. What is your intention?
Our intention is actually to have a two-car garage along with a storage workspace placed in that particular area. It's presently kind of a vacant lot, really, in essence. We've worked with the contractor, and we would make sure that the setback would be at least 12 feet from the property line to my neighbor and 42 feet from the frontage. The property, the usage is just personal use. It would basically be storage. There wouldn't be any change in use of the property. And again, we don't see any foreseeable negative impact on the surrounding environment. It doesn't affect lighting or traffic patterns of any sorts. And it's actually shielded by a set of cypress trees and hedges, so it's kind of like neatly tucked in that particular area.
Are those your photos that you provided with the application?
Yes, yes.
Those were helpful.
There should be photos in there. And there's presently a driveway there, and the garage would be adjacent to that particular driveway.
It's marked Stone Drive?
Yes, it's gravel.
Okay, so it would be on the other side of that.
It would roughly be about 31 feet, I believe, off the building.
Not attached.
It's not attached, yes.
And is this a one-story addition planned?
Yep, no second story or anything. Again, just for 2 cars and a storage space.
For the record, photographs are pretty helpful showing where it is. Who is the abutter that would be closest to the proposed construction?
That would be me,
Well,
Robin Hagan.
okay. We'll get to you in just a minute. Are there other questions from the board? Yep. The nonconformity here is that it's an undersized lot, which is not uncommon in Norton. The plans for the structure are also part of the application, showing 1 story.
What's the plan for the storage part of that garage?
Just kind of a space for lawnmowers, small hand tools, and things along those lines for personal use. No intention to have it as a business of any sorts along those lines.
No special equipment or machinery, unusual?
No, nothing other than, regular hand saws and stuff. I mean, right now, the existing house, we have limited storage underneath because there are bedrooms, so no place to put the lawnmower and things like that. So that would be, in there, an extra storage for furniture and things.
Yeah, I
along
want
those
to make
lines.
sure, you're not, all of a sudden, a
Yeah.
lawnmower shop, pops up.
Yeah, no.
All right.
Actually, we're about to retire, so this is our retirement home, so we're just, all the lawn furniture and everything else would be placed in that particular storage unit.
The engineers might know more than I do. There's something shown on the plan, soil absorption system. Is that part of septic?
It's part of, the septic system was moved before we purchased the house. It was, I believe, originally on the side of the house in the front, and it was moved to the rear area, so that's the lowest portion of the property. The proposed garage is up at the highest elevation. So I don't believe it would have any kind of direct impact upon water flow of any sorts.
Other questions?
No?
Yep. Part of the file is a letter received from Ms. Haygood. Is it Haygood? Yeah. And would you like to be heard on this?
Sure.
Go ahead. Just identify yourself for the record.
Robin Hagan. My concern is the water table is very high in our area.
Can you step up to the podium? Thank you. We have technical assistance now, so got to abide by that. We don't have a boom mic yet? Right.
Yeah, so my concern is the water table is very high in that area, and having such a large building abutting basically my entire side yard, I'm in fear that it's gonna create like a ponding effect, where the water just, I was just able to mow my lawn this week because it's so saturated. And we didn't have a bad winter this year. So the weight of a structure so close to my foundation and yard in general with the septic system and leaching field is a major concern.
I'm sorry, where is your septic system?
It's out it would be, I believe, close to where his workshop would be ending. Because he's coming 40 feet from the street, or 42 feet, and then there's another additional 42 feet for the structure itself.
So it's 12 feet from your property, which is.
Right.
Which passes under zoning for a separate structure. Is your septic system in this part of your property, nearest the workshop? Is that what you're saying?
Well, it would kind of be like right in here. I mean,
Okay.
it's feet over. It's not like right up against the
Yeah,
fence.
but it's that side of your
Yeah.
house? Okay, just trying to understand.
This helps in
We can ask the applicant, are you gonna be changing the grade of the property to accommodate this building?
no plan at this particular point, no.
What about drainage from the roof? Is that shown on the plan? Does that have to be depicted?
I think it's in,
Is there a gutter system that
I
you're,
believe there is a gutter system, so the water would be shunted into where our leaching field would be in our backyard.
well, that's what I was going to ask. Could we, is it reasonable to say drain it away from the Ms. Haygood's property? In other words,
That would actually be the plan.
not drain it to the,
When
what
we
is that,
kind of
the
look
westerly side?
we kind of look at the elevations along the sides there, and we're up at around 110, 111, 108 feet.
Oh, I see.
And it would drain diagonally across our yard into the lowest portion.
It would drain away from the Haygood residence
Yeah.
then, anyway.
That would be the intention. I understand, having moved in December and the thaw, I realized it gets kind of muddy in the back. now.
Yes, very much so.
I'm in sympathy with that, so I wanted to make sure there was no kind of impact there. So whatever gutter system would be shunting the water away from the property into our area.
Go ahead.
I'll just ask Mr. Carmichael if he has any, do you have any opinion in regards to if we're not changing the grade, in regards to the water table being affected by a structure like this?
My only concern would be maybe potential of a swale on the side so that there is no water runoff under the adjacent property, as it is illegal to divert water from your property onto anybody else's. So maybe the addition of a swale and then the dry well for year-round drain leads, I think that would be a nice
So- I think I'm hearing from the applicant's willing to stipulate that drainage from the roof would be away from the Haygood property?
Yes.
Is there any more specificity that we need in the decision than that? I mean, I'm thinking, it's a simple gutter system, right?
I think.
You mentioned a dry well?
Dry well.
And the swell.
Swell.
Is a swale a term, a legal term, or?
It's just a low point where all the water, it's like a gutter.
Okay.
It's a low point where the water runs out between the properties.
So with the addition of a swale directed away from the Haygood property on the interior side of the new structure? Is that a way to word it?
Within that 12-foot setback.
Now, how would the
Well-
weight of everything affect?
I'm sorry, Chris, but not toward the Haygood property, away from it?
No, running parallel to the length of the 42-foot structure. The swale would run parallel, it's like a gutter in the ground. It would run parallel to the proposed workshop,
So
and
you-
then it would dump out towards the backyard.
Okay, so the swale is actually parallel to the Haygood line, property line.
Property line.
I thought it was something leading, a trench leading away. You're saying just a
Parallel, so
swale?
it wouldn't go
Okay,
towards the Hagan property line.
okay, if I can get some assistance with the wording on that. And yes, Ms. Haygood?
And that would alleviate like the additional weight on the soil itself to divert the water, a structure that large?
I don't think, well, I'm not an engineer, but I don't know that weight would be an issue. I mean, the purpose is it's going to be a grade, and the plan is certainly not that it's going to sink. So
So they're not gonna have to, you're not gonna have to dig down at all or build a property?
Just only the foundation. They would dig into the foundation.
There's no basement to it, correct? There's no under.
Just a slab?
It's just basically a
The
slab.
foundation, and then you could have drain leads that lead around the foundation with stonework that would lead to the drying well. That would, because he's adding impervious surface, the roof line, we could have him lead these drain leads away from the property line, and then the swale would take any runoff on the surface. So no, you wouldn't have any concerns about the weight of the structure.
Required drive.
I mean, the way he's describing it might actually help your problem.
Yeah.
Actually, it kind of does.
Yeah.
There's sort of like a V kind of structure in our property, and I know that one section along your property, the water naturally is coming that
Right.
way. So we wanted to kind of like tap into that, so we would shunt it away, because I know what you're talking about with
Yeah.
cutting along.
It sounds like the applicant has the same issue on his side of the lawn.
Well, it's actually my land that like runs all behind there too.
Okay.
You know, because of the drainage issues when they built the lot. So that's all my land that goes back there.
Okay, so would the applicant be willing to stipulate in the decision the addition of a swale along the side parallel to the property line, the Hagewood property line, and a dry well located
Towards the rear.
toward the rear of the property from Cottage Street? And I don't know what size dry well to suggest or anything like that.
It would probably be about 50 gallons. So the swale could run here, along between the properties, and then you'd have the drain leads coming and connecting to a dry well towards the rear of the property.
Towards the rear of the
That would
property,
alleviate the
exactly.
issues.
Is that acceptable to the
I
applicant?
just wanted, just if you can just show me on the plan what
Right here.
Don't worry.
So the building inspector just suggested the swale there and then a dry well, just something off to the corner. I guess that's the,
So it leads towards the rear of your property.
away from Cottage Street, and that'll help both of you, I think. Okay. Are there any further concerns?
No, I mean, I just, like I said, the main issue is the water table because, I mean, we've struggled with it for years.
My yard was like that too.
Right.
About 10 days ago in the back, yeah. I understand. Okay, thank you. Is
Thank you.
there anybody else here to speak in favor of the application as filed, aside from the applicant? And is there anybody else to speak in opposition to the application or express any concerns about it? For the record, none? Any other questions?
Nope.
Is there a motion to close the public hearing on this?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So it's an order for discussion, and I think we were talking about modification of a decision under 1.5. We're allowed to add conditions, so it would be a finding under 1.5 that the proposed construction would not render the property substantially more detrimental to the area, except that the board has imposed the condition that the owner will add a swale to the side of the proposed structure parallel to the property line, and a dry well
Attached to the drain leads from the roof line.
attached to the drain leads from the roof line, and I think that's in the, between the existing structure and the proposed structure. Does that work?
Yes.
That works.
Sounds good.
And the applicant is
Yes.
comfortable with that? Doesn't
Yep.
sound like a big project.
Be inspected by the building inspector.
Well, the building inspector always sees it, is that correct?
Yeah, I'll confirm all that.
Yeah,
That would-
I'm just saying.
This is
he'll-
also, just for the record, this is an appeal of my decision to deny the building permit.
Okay, yeah,
Just
thanks.
for the record.
Thank you for pointing that out. It's an appeal as well as a 1.5E finding, right? But your denial was based on 1.5?
Yes, it was, sir.
Yeah, okay. Thank you for pointing that out. Is there such a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you and good luck, and appreciate your input and your understanding with what the applicant's trying to do. Okay, thank you.
He makes the motion, I'll just say second.
Just hold up a card,
Yeah, I know.
a popsicle stick with a 8x11. Okay. Get them through. Next is a continued hearing concerning 131 Taunton Ave. Mr. Brandon, I saw him earlier. Mr. Brandon is here? And is your counsel here? Ah, I didn't see you. Okay. Is there a motion to take this from the table? It was continued at our last meeting, to take this from the table for further consideration.
Are we gonna have an issue with,
So Jim was the member that's been hearing.
Thank you.
The whole time,
Jim and Lucas?
yes.
Okay, so the chair recognizes that Mr. Tenore and Mr. Wozniak are the members who are seated on this decision.
I'll make the motion to take it from the table.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, counsel or Mr. Brandon, when we last left, we had asked for some more specificity, some more information. Can you give us an update?
I can.
And counsel is here to assist.
I can provide an update. And so, after the last hearing date, Mr. Brandon has focused on a couple of aspects of the property. He engaged RIM Engineering to revise the plan once again to show all of the containers and the trailers. And he received that plan so shortly before the hearing that we have a copy of it. We haven't had the opportunity to submit it yet to the building commissioner, but we can at least, I can represent to you that we have it, and we can show it to the, oh, we do have copies.
We need copy to be filed, so if
We'll file copies.
this is, we haven't received any further paper on this since the last meeting. We're going to now.
I didn't realize we had.
Would you like copies, Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Carmichael?
I can go make you check copies if you'd like.
I have multiple copies. I didn't realize that he had
Okay.
copies.
I didn't hear about this till now, so. Yep. And we'll leave one for the file copy. Yes, sir. And one for the building inspector, thank you.
So I.
For the record, this is a plan of RIM Engineering dated April 12, 2019. And it's a revision.
It's revised.
May 28th.
May 28th. Well, I know the board likes to receive things in advance. This was finished May 28th.
Understood.
And I have an additional item that I've prepared, and again,
Do you know
I-
the information on the night of the hearing?
Well,
Because I've seen nothing.
conveniently, we asked for it before the hearing. We haven't seen this yet, and I'm stating on the record that we haven't seen it
Yeah,
yet.
I don't, yeah.
We usually let the applicant present to us and then say, well, we're obviously going to look at this and
Yeah.
consider it. So it wouldn't be, I don't think, ripe for a decision tonight. Well, let's see what happens.
Yeah.
But
okay. And now additionally, following the last hearing date, I prepared a supplemental letter to my initial letter. And my reason for doing so is essentially that my first letter focused on the issue of farming, whether that's protected, what kind of structures are allowed for a farm. The last hearing date, there were a lot of issues raised, and I just wanted to tie the discussion in specifically to Mr. Carmichael's denial letter. And so what I've done is I've gone with that letter and gone point by point with his position in our response. And again, I know we're passing this out to the board tonight, but there were some moving parts here. Mr. Burns had some work ongoing, and there were some other circumstances that delayed the finalization of this letter till today. So I'll submit it tonight, understanding that the board would have liked it in advance, but I apologize for that.
Well, I'll ask the board too. I mean, does the board feel comfortable hearing about it tonight, or would you rather just put it off and read it and hear from Mr. Carmichael and, anyone else who wants to read it? I mean, none of us have seen this before now. We'll take it. Yep, of course. We can talk about it, but at any time, if you feel like, this is, just kick it off to the next hearing,
Won't we have to
I'm-
discuss it at the next hearing anyway?
yes, we will.
Yeah.
This is a very
Detailed.
Very detailed, long
Right.
letter.
Would you briefly want to summarize for us?
Yes, I won't belabor
Not going
every
more.
word in the letter, I won't read it to you, but I'll just summarize the points made. And so, Mr. Carmichael's letter is basically in two sections. One is the denial of the building permit for the building that Mr. Brandon wants to build, which is the dwelling with attached garage. And the second half of the letter is other various violations or asserted violations. So as to the denial, one thing that came up at the last meeting was that, and it's in Mr. Carmichael's letter, is that WMB Construction Inc. is registered with the Secretary of State's office at 131 Taunton Avenue. And so I went back and found the corporate records on file with the Secretary of the Commonwealth so that I could see those myself. I hadn't seen that. And so the most recent annual report lists Mr. Brandon as the resident agent at that address, but it lists the corporation's office as being in Taunton. And I respectfully submit that that's critical because the office of the registered agent is not the office of the corporation. The registered agent can be anywhere in Massachusetts. It can be, you can hire a corporation to be your registered agent in downtown Boston. I could be Mr. Brandon's resident agent at 73 Washington Street in Taunton. So I think that the inference that the company's place of business is there because he personally, as a registered agent, is there is not correct.
Well, it says the corporation registered office is at 131 Taunton Ave.
But-
The principal office is listed as a post office box in Taunton, so.
Right, and so in my letter, you'll see
He
that.
sits at the post office box, but,
Right.
okay.
And I explained in my letter why he listed that as his registered office. The registered office of the corporation is where the registered agent is. It is not the corporation.
The corporation has to
It-
exist somewhere.
Does
It
it?
can't exist in a post
Thank
office
you,
box.
I was going to ask.
The registered
Is
agent.
there an office for the
Yes,
place?
and in my letter,
Business?
in my letter, I explain that there is an office at 1 Amber Way where the paperwork is conducted, in connection with the business. And Mr. Brandon has locations elsewhere where he keeps equipment related to his business.
Is Amber Way his residence?
No, it's actually his mother, who is basically his assistant in the business. That's her residence.
Okay, so it's.
And he lives in Taunton. He lives
the
on William
office
Street in
is-
Taunton.
The office is an office in a residence. There's no other business location where he keeps his machinery or equipment or supplies?
He has a location which he could speak to, but it's not at Taunton Avenue.
Well, what is the location where you keep supplies and tools and things?
In Taunton, an industrial yard.
What is it? What's the address?
It's Ducharme Trucking in Taunton. It's been there for 4 years.
Do you have a rental arrangement there, or
Yes, I do.
you rent space there?
Yes.
Okay.
So my point as to that is just that
Did they only give you one, and I haven't seen any of this, did they only give you one annual report?
This is a printout from the Secretary of State's
Just the most
office.
recent one? What about previous ones? We would
No.
need to see all.
the previous ones are all available.
So, but is there a
Right.
reason why they weren't given to us?
I don't see any reason why we would provide prior year corporate records when the issue is where's the
Usually
corporation now?
because the address of the corporation is 131 Taunton. So if there was a change, it was very recent.
The address of the corporation is not 131 Taunton.
Well, okay,
That's
that's in
what it
dispute,
is.
that's in dispute. But I think we had seen earlier reports, I think I had looked it up
Yeah,
a month
I can look
ago.
it up right now, but yeah.
Right, it's all publicly
And
available.
it says
We'll-
131 Taunton, so.
We'll secure that, but I
Well,
don't
this-
know that there were any
If
changes in
you
the
were,
address.
if you're claiming that the address that comes up is just the registered agent, then there would be thousands and thousands of corporations whose address would be the registered agent at One International Place, because that's where the biggest registered agent, that's where their office
But my
is.
point is that the registered agent is at he listed his location as registered agent at 131
What's
Taunton
the
Avenue.
company name?
But the corporation has never represented that its place of business is on Taunton Avenue.
WMB Construction.
WMB Construction.
Okay. Go ahead.
And this is really just going, and the point of this is just to go point by point off of Mr. Carmichael's letter, because that's the written decision. This hearing is an appeal of that written decision. And so the scope of the hearing should be based on what the reasons were in that written decision.
I don't think the board disagrees with that at all.
And so some of these representations are factual. The property's not being used as a contracted storage yard. There's been a site visit, and so the materials presently there are for the development of the farm that Mr. Brandon is developing.
Has there been activity at the site to change the status of whatever's there on site since the last meeting? Can you bring us up to date on that? as well?
Yes. So a major piece of work that Mr. Brandon has engaged in is, and this is a conservation issue, but it's important to understanding just what he's been doing on the site. The conservation agent had signaled to Mr. Brandon that his order of conditions is up later this year, and that due to issues that had been raised, that wouldn't be extended, or there would be an issue extending it. So Mr. Brandon actually finished all of the work on the order of conditions. He finished his wetland crossing. If anyone has been by the site, they'll have seen the new landscaping by the roadside. So that was a lot of work, and it was compressed in a very short time frame. So he finished the wetland crossing. He had to do some wetland replication. He's completed an as-built plan. He's filed the as-built plan with the Conservation Commission and has submitted a request for the Conservation Commission to confirm that he's completed our work.
Do you know when that happens?
June 10th.
Okay.
Is the conservation meeting. And so
Yep, go ahead.
So anyone who's dealt with a project of that scope might understand that was a lot of work in the last 30 days or so to finish the wetland crossing.
Has there been any work regarding any of the things that were out there, the trailers or the truck beds?
So one thing that occurred was right after our hearing, the Board of Health went out. I think that the health agent was notified. They went out to the site, observed where the animals were kept, found that there were no issues, no violations. And Mr. Brandon has actually brought some new animals to the site. So there's now a pen for pigs that wasn't there during our site visit. There's also chickens. And on the plan that we've submitted, those are in trailers. The chickens are in a trailer, and the pigs are in a storage container that's shown on the plan.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And council can correct me, but some of the items we requested at the last hearing was a business plan to show us what Mr. Brandon's plan is with the farm, and also proof of, I believe we were looking for proof of receipts
Yes.
on the purchasing of the animals and crops and so forth. So where do we stand with some kind of business plan to show us the farming
activity?
Yeah.
and what we're going to be doing with it?
Well, right now, we haven't submitted that, but we would submit that to some extent, the activities there should speak for themselves. To some extent, I mean, the animals are there. The folks who were on the site visit.
I think we were looking for historic, when it was brought along as a farm and when that occurred, right? I mean, that's what I think we were asking for.
Absolutely.
I understand there are animals there now, and obviously
Yeah.
I assume he didn't poach them.
Yeah, another element of
He had to
this.
buy them, but,
Right.
or acquire them, but historically, there was testimony that this has been a farm and that he's been trying to bring it along as a farm.
Well-
And what we had asked for was, show us the papers, and as council is pointing out, needs that for the farm designation that was discussed last time. Look, if you didn't submit it yet, we're gonna schedule another meeting on this in a few weeks. Can you get it to us beforehand next time? And then we'll read this and review this with Mr. Carmichael too.
Now, one element of this, I just want to make sure that I totally understand everything that you're looking for, because one element of this is that this is a prospective use of land. It's basically a farm that's being developed, so there's no receipts of sold crops.
I have some.
You do have some, okay. So we can supplement what we filed with receipts. We can do that.
One of the other items we requested was for you to meet with Mr. Carmichael and pull the appropriate permits for all the structures on site.
Right.
Has that happened?
That has been ongoing. One of the things that Mr. Carmichael did require was the plan, which we've only submitted, it was only finished yesterday.
Okay.
But there has been contact with Mr. Carmichael's office about information that he's requested on the storage containers and the trailers, and
So it's
that process is ongoing.
on that. It sounds like that's work to be done and some checking to be done by Mr. Carmichael. Do we have a next meeting date?
We do.
What is it?
I can look into it. The other question I had from Mr. Carmichael is what was our decision with the trailers, that we stated that anything over 180 days required a permit? Is that correct?
The bylaw, not the zoning bylaw, the town bylaw requires a permit for any trailer. It doesn't define
26th.
trailer very good.
June
so,
26th.
So yes, I require a permit for any trailer. Usually it's a temporary permit for residential repair on their property. But, no, I issue cease and desists for trailers used for storage daily, so I could give those to the board as back.
Because
May-
your letter states several times, the one that you just submitted, quickly reviewing it, that you state that our bylaw does not have any requirements for trailers, but again, one of our concerns was to have those properly permitted, considering that they're gonna be over 180 days on site.
And the, that process has been initiated. One thing I would ask, because I don't believe it's in Mr. Carmichael's letter, is what provision of the general bylaw is that?
It's cited in my original letter. I believe you actually even referenced it here in your one.
Is it section 95.1? 95-1?
Pull those up, I don't have it in front of me. There is just a bylaw, general bylaw for a trailer.
That's the Board of Health?
By the Board of Health.
So, the board can read my letter.
We will.
Yeah, that bylaw specifically is about using a trailer as a residence. Mr. Brandon is not using the RV that's on the site as a residence, and we submit that it doesn't apply.
Okay. Our next meeting is,
It's the storage trailers and the model trailers that are used. That's a contention.
that's what we were discussing last time, I think.
So we're still debating it here in this letter.
Okay, and also, they may be shown on the plan. I'm not asking anybody to look at the plan immediately. We're on for June 26. We just received stuff tonight. I'm not inclined to hold up the rest of the meeting while we go through stack of paper we just received. No offense to the applicant, except that they produced it, they filed it as soon as they could. But it sounds like we need to continue this to June 26. The question is, let's advance the ball if we can. We'll look at the letter, we'll look at the plans. Mr. Carmichael, it sounds like is going to be going out there again to look in conjunction with the plan set, I would assume.
If the board so requests, I think it would be good that I go out and do a site visit with the planner or any members of the board that want
Can I,
to meet.
Yeah, of course.
are you, between now and June 26th, do you guys plan on filing all the appropriate permits for all the structures that are on site with Mr. Carmichael?
Yeah, that's the plan.
Well, I believe that was stated last time, that you guys were planning on doing that along with the business plan.
In the letter.
So,
You're contending the use of these trailers in your letter, that you don't need a permit.
Okay,
exactly.
That's the problem.
so that's going to be a problem if we come back on June 26, and your
Yes.
response is, well, no, we haven't, because we're arguing about the need to, because at this point, Mr. Carmichael is the building inspector who has issued a cease and desist and a cleanup letter with a list of bullet pointed items that were pretty clear, and so if you want to contest that, I think you have to do that. Say that you're contesting that, we'll make a decision on that. The last we heard, you were going to permit them. If that's different now in the letter, that's a new ball of wax. We'll consider it, and we'll decide at the next meeting, and then if we say no, you'll have to appeal to the Superior Court.
Right.
I mean,
So
that's
the-
what I'm saying, we have to push this along, we have to move this along.
So the plan right now is to permit them. The main holdup was that this plan that showing the setbacks needed to be finished, and
Okay.
so that was a major holdup. And so the plan is to continue that permitting process.
Okay.
Do we
So-
plan on seeing a business plan by the next meeting as well?
Or before the next.
Or before?
Well,
the next
before
meeting?
the next
Submit it
meeting.
before the next meeting for our review?
With receipts.
We can provide receipts for the materials that have been, receipts for what's transpired to date, absolutely. And the business plan will prepare a plan. I'm not sure how detailed, this is required to be, but we'll provide a plan describing the future intent.
Wasn't the issue to see the conformance with the farm designation? That's what we were talking about, and there were some questions about that, so that's what we're trying to follow up on. You
Okay.
had to have certain things in place to perfect the farm
The
designation?
agricultural exemption, it's clear
Thank
in
you.
48 Section 3. It lays it all out.
Okay. So we'll leave it to you to look at that and to satisfy us that that's been taken care of,
Okay.
okay?
I would just respectfully submit, though, that 48 Section 3 doesn't just protect existing uses. It protects prospective uses. So that when someone comes in and they say, I want to start a farm, that's just as protected as when someone comes in and they say, I have an existing farm and I want to build a structure or whatever they want to do. So we will comply with that, but we will hold to our legal position on some of the issues. We don't know how the board will vote. Some of what I put in my letter, it's to protect our rights in case the board doesn't act in a way that's favorable, and we need to have a record before the Superior Court or wherever an appeal would go. That's not the preferred route. The preferred route is to get this approved so that Mr. Brennan can complete his farm.
It's my
Understood.
And I'm just pushing back on that suggestion.
Hold on.
It's my understanding there's animals existing on the property. We saw them
Right.
in pictures, and then he just indicated that he's brought in pigs and chickens.
Right.
So this isn't a prospective farm, this is an existing.
And the testimony at the beginning was, this has been a
Historical,
farm.
right.
I've been trying to bring it along, which I completely respect. You start out with land and then
Right.
you
Yeah.
develop it into
Well-
a farm. But the testimony, what we were told was this has been a farm operation and he's been trying to ramp up, which we're willing to accept. But then we asked for some indication of when that's happened and satisfaction of the farm exemption,
Agricultural exemption.
agricultural exemption, thank you for correcting me. That's what we're getting at.
The farm should be qualified for the tax exemption under Chapter 61A later this year. And just to, I'm just submitting that as information for the board.
Go ahead.
And just to clarify the past testimony that's been had, I did represent that historically. In ancient history, this had been a farm, this old walls. That's gone. Mr. Brennan's the first farmer that's been there since ages ago. And during the course of the hearing, Mr. Brennan's work has been ongoing. And so at the beginning of the hearing, there were no animals. Today, there are animals. And so that has been in motion. And I don't,
There were animals when you first came in, because we saw the trailers with the cutout windows for animals.
that was the second hearing date. As of the first date, there were no animals.
At my
Was-
denial letter, there were no animals.
Okay.
On
Right.
the first visit, they added animals, they just added additional animals.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
The-
Sorry.
The whole issue really is that Mr. Brennan has cleared the land. He has his greenhouse out there. He's been buying animals. He's been planting crops, but it's a new farm. It's not a farm that's been there for years.
So-
There's no records from 2 or 3 years ago.
Okay, so show us what records you have. That's what we were asking for, and provide the backup as needed for the agricultural exemption. That's what we were looking for. That's what we
Okay.
are looking for. Okay? June 26 is the next meeting. Thank you.
Should they have the information in by the 19th?
I would request that the information be in a week before.
Okay.
So that it can be distributed to us. We get things on a Dropbox folder. Yes, Mr. Carmichael?
Mr. Chairman, these accessory structures need to show that they're gonna withstand the 110, 133 mile an hour wind zone that we're within. And they also need to show that they're gonna survive a 35-pound ground steel load. So I need that documentation as well, for me to accept these as accessory structures.
I see. That's part of the construction codes?
Mr. Brandon's mother was informed of that at the counter, I believe 10 days ago.
Okay. So that's another aspect that
Right.
we need to see, or Mr. Carmichael will need to see, and then report to us that it's been satisfied.
Okay.
So as much as can be done, please do. And yes, the 19th would be the optimal date for receiving, because they're scanned in and we get them electronically ahead of time so we can look at these things.
Okay.
All right?
You'll see in my letter that I push back against the notion that the storage containers are structures within the meaning of the
Okay.
bylaw. But for the sake of moving this forward and trying to cooperate, Mr. Brandon will cooperate with the request to get those permitted.
I understand you've got to make a decision whether you're going to say, I'm going to comply and here's the compliance, or no, I'm going to fight and argue, not fight, argue legally, legal points, and then we make a decision. We understood, or I understood, that you were trying to comply with the things that we had been talking about until now. That's where we're going. And counsel, was there?
Do you have a extension form? Did Paul leave you one?
I do not have a form.
I can file a letter.
extension.
We need a letter of that, for the extension, but also an extension of the 100 days.
That's what I thought you were talking about.
I was talking about a continuance, that they're agreeing to a continuance and an extension of the 100 days.
Okay, we have that on record on the audio file. Is that,
No, we need it in writing.
So I'll represent to the board that my client does consent to that, and I'll follow that up with a written submission confirming it in writing.
can you write something out right now
Yeah.
saying that you are agreeing to an extension of the 100-day limit for rendering a decision? I think you should make it through July 31st to be safe. Just a sentence or two,
Okay.
and sign it on behalf of the applicant. We need that before we continue. Thank you. Mr. Carmichael, is there anything else any other details we should be taking note of?
The building permit requires sign-offs from the Conservation and the Board of Health, and they have yet to receive those, so those signatures will need to be obtained as well.
Council said Board of Health just did a visit. Didn't have any complaints. We don't know that. You need that signed off?
It's not signed off on the permit application as of yet.
I see.
So I will need that signature. And then also, if he's adding animals, I believe they need Board of Health permits as well for that.
My client has worked with the Board of Health.
Excellent.
Okay,
Well, you
thank you.
will. That's fine.
Okay. We'll just wait a second for this written continuance. Chris, you have a copy of the letter packet and the new map?
Thank you.
Should I leave a second copy for the file, for the zoning file, or do we use yours?
If you want to give me those, I'd like to review these.
Oh, I know.
as part of the permit.
So you'd like 2 copies?
If I could get another copy, and I'll submit them to Mr. Di Giuseppe.
Okay, I mean, I could leave them for him
Yeah.
upstairs, too. I'm just
I'll
asking.
take them.
Okay, sure. Why don't you take
I'll stay
mine?
for the end of the meeting, you can hear me everything.
Okay. Yeah, because these should be stamped in tomorrow as, received at the meeting. I'll
Agreed.
try to remember to email him tonight or in the morning to follow up.
Either I can make copies of these.
Well, we can't copy large plan sets, can we?
We have a new large-scale scanner printer.
I didn't know that. Not that we want to
Probably
offer
doesn't want, he
offer
probably
the
doesn't want
services.
anyone to know.
Yeah, no, I mean,
Yes.
we require multiple copies, so. Yeah. That was a secret.
It's all good.
Yeah.
Date it, can you date
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
What is this, the 29th? Yikes,
Yes, it is.
scary. Thank you.
Put that in the file.
Yeah, for the record, council has handed us a handwritten memo, Ray Appeal, William Brandon, 131 Tonnet Ave. My client assents the continuance of the hearing to July 31, 2019, and a corresponding continuance of the 100-day timeframe for the board to act, signed by counsel. Thank you, and dated today, May 29th. And I will leave that for the file, along with the letter packet that was given to us and the new plan set by Rim Engineering. And with that, is there a motion to continue this matter to June 26, say 7:10? I don't know what else we have, but let's not put it first. 7:10?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. If we have small matters, we'll fit them in first. That's all I'm intending to do by that.
Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. Thank you, Mr. Brandon.
Thank you.
Leave that. Next is the application for 60 West Main Street. The applicant owner is Cumberland Farms, Inc., GAC Development, LLC. GAC Development, Cumberland Farms? Thank you. I'll give you a second to come in and introduce yourselves, whoever's going to be speaking. Oh, hi, counsel. Mr. Dolan is here. For the next, that's right, not for this. Got it. You can go when you're ready, but I'll give you time to set up too. I'm not trying to
Great.
rush you inordinately. Go ahead.
Thank you very much,
This is an,
Mr.
I'm
Chairman.
sorry.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Introduction, application for Cumberland Farms to construct a building including self-service gas station at 60 West Main Street. The site, I believe, I can describe it as the site of the old Bank of America building, which is now gone, correct? That was gone months ago, a few months ago. And there may be some other land there. I don't mean to consign it just to the old bank site, but that's the parcel that we're talking about.
Just east of the Henry L.
Yep. And I believe the only aspect that's going to be before us is the sign
Correct.
variance?
Yes.
You've been obviously before planning board and other boards here to, or you're going before them
Yes.
to clear up other matters.
Correct.
Where are you in the process?
Sure,
Can you just start off an introduction?
Of course. So good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Mr. Carmichael. I'm Tom Reedy, an attorney with Bacon Wilson out of Amherst here on behalf of Cumberland Farms and its variance petition. With me this evening is John Marchand, the civil engineer on this project. So 60 West Main Street, we started meeting with the planning department, building commissioner, town manager, I think it was the water superintendent, one of the fire personnel, back in November of last year to talk about this site. Fast forward, we took those comments, redesigned the site, met again at the end of March. And then from that, it was determined with a look at your zoning bylaws that we were going to need some relief in the form of variances for the freestanding sign, the wall signs, and then also what we decided to call an electronic message center, though it's really just the gasoline price signs. And if you're familiar with Cumberland Farms, there's a smart pay member and then a non-smart pay member that changes, and where the request is to change it every 8 seconds. It's typically a 10-cent change. We're trying to get it to be more, but I don't know if they'll agree to that. We have submitted to the planning board for special permit and site plan review. We are on for hearing next Tuesday. There's going to be a peer review of the stormwater, which has already started, as well as traffic. We had a traffic study, and that's being peer reviewed as well.
Through the planning board.
Through the planning board, correct. And we've also reached out to the superintendent of the Norton Public Schools and have some feedback from him specifically related to traffic. And so our traffic engineer is looking at it, and I know that the peer reviewer is looking at it as well.
Are you a direct abutter to the school?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
Senior center across the street, school to the left of us, if you're on the property.
Right.
And I mean, with that, we will have to start the process for underground storage tank license at some point, but we like to get through this process and then also at least get a sense from the planning board of what site design changes they may have, what other concerns, questions, et cetera, we've already received from Mr. DiGiuseppe his review letter with a couple of comments that we're looking to incorporate. So everything has been, and I think Mr. Carmichael can speak to it, we try to be good neighbors. We try to reach out to the neighbors and have discussions, and, when we hear something, we try to make a change so that it works better for the town. So that's kind of the MO so far. I'm happy to answer more questions, or if there's other specifics.
Well, the applicant has outlined the sign ordinance and several aspects that applicant is asking for a variance on. I think we should probably have you show us that sign. There's another Cumberland Farms up 140, correct, with the same sign? Isn't that a Cumberland?
Yeah, right by.
Probably.
By the
Xfinity.
Xfinity.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
so same type of sign right there, I think. I don't know if it's the same size as that, or if you know that. Are there different sizes for these
There are.
signs?
Yeah, their standard sign is 25 feet tall and probably 120, 130 square feet. That's, if they had their wish, that's what they would do.
This one applied
Is
for is?
14.7 feet high and a total of 64 square feet. And 42 of those square feet are the price cabinet right here. So you'll see that's the 42 square feet, and then just this piece is the 24 square feet. We've got the structure of the pillars on the side of it. So this is subdued and what they thought fit in better. With respect to the bylaw, we are requesting a variance because you do allow a 10-foot high sign, so we're going a little bit above that. And then your area calculations, there's, I think, 336 feet of frontage on this site. You've got a provision where if you wanted two signs, you could have them. They're not looking for two, they're only looking for one, and it's this freestanding sign in a location 10.1 feet off of the road. So this is what I would consider a subdued sign package that they've put together.
And it is to be a gas station and convenience store
Convenience
as
store.
we're familiar
Correct.
with. Okay.
Yeah, and sometimes, and I don't know if the one by the Xfinity Center has it, sometimes they do let's call it an earnest electronic message center where you'll see like milk prices or hot dog prices that changes at a certain frequency. Here, they're not proposing any of that. The only thing that would change is
The two pricing.
the smart pay and then this. So the smart pay would change to non-smart pay simultaneously with this price, either increasing or decreasing by 10 cents, as it were, depending upon if it's a smart pay or non-smart pay. The diesel stays static, subject to whatever changes in the diesel prices happen on a daily basis or whatever frequency they happen, but not that 8-second frequency.
They got me on that, by the way.
They
They got me on the price.
they?
When I saw it, I pulled in.
I thought you were going to pay for
I'm like,
diesel?
yeah, this is the wrong gas price.
No, 10 cent less. Yeah, frankly, I wonder about that in any attorney general complaints that
Yeah.
happen to be out there for fraud or deceptive trade practices when they come in and say, oh. But if you get the app, then the problem's solved, so maybe a little pitch there.
The electronic, it's called an electronic message center because it changes. It's flashing lights as described in the bylaw.
Yeah, and it's not, and I mean, by flashing, there's no fizzle, it's just
Right.
it's a
Solid
hard
change.
change from
Yep.
every 8 seconds or greater. But I think your bylaw provides 10 seconds, we would just request a reduction down to 8 seconds.
10
That's
seconds as a minimum,
as a minimum, correct.
but 8 seconds is the request.
That is the request, that is the preferred time.
Something in salesmanship tells Cumberland Farms that that's what they have.
The sweet spot, you've got it.
Okay.
It's people smarter than me.
What are the hours of operation?
So we're going to be proposing 24 hours of operation in that location. Obviously, we've got to go through planning board and get some feedback from that as well. So far, frankly, there hasn't been any pushback, but I guess we'll see what happens on.
What are the other filling
Tuesday.
stations in town, the other Cumberland Farms? Are they 24?
Speedway down.
Speedway, yeah.
Oh, Speedway is now?
Cumberland is, I believe.
Cumberland is.
I think they're both 24.
Yeah.
Okay. Because that's part of the sign ordinance as well, the lights are supposed to be off at a certain time, so, okay.
From 11 PM to 6 AM.
Oh, thank you, you got it there. Okay,
So that's the freestanding sign, and it's located in this location, right here on the westerly side of the site. Right in this area.
the street, I'm sorry, the street there is below? Okay,
Yeah, correct. West Main Street here.
Closest to the school?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if that's purposeful. I think it's more about the curve of the road coming.
That's the gym, don't worry. It's
Westerly.
not-
Yeah, but still, that's where all the buses come in and out.
Yes, right,
Yeah.
that's true.
Yeah, and that's part of the discussion with the superintendent is to make sure, there were a couple of things identified, look at the
That's,
peak hours of when these schools are having the buses drop, just because we don't want to,
Right.
it's a convenience store, and it sounds evident, but if it becomes inconvenient, human nature is just going to take people elsewhere, so it behooves Cumberland Farms to make sure that.
is that the planning board that actually cites the sign? I mean, tells the applicant where to put the sign?
That would be for a site plan review.
Yeah, that's the plan.
That's part of the plan review?
Yep.
Okay, so that's not us to say where the sign goes, but we have a say as to the size of the sign and the composition of the sign, I mean. Okay.
Are there any residential homes across the street
I
that
don't
far
believe
down?
Across the street. No, I think there's a
Honeydew.
Senior Center and then another business center over here. All the homes are
CBS.
To the
There are homes on the
northeast.
inside.
There are homes, yeah. I
think
thought there
there's
was one
a-
like diagonal.
In back,
There's 2 daycares in there, too.
Yeah, there's a home in the back, I think. right?
in the back, yeah.
and then there is Seminary Way, approximately how far from the site, from the property line?
To, you're looking to this?
What is that to the north of the property line there? Is that a house?
It is a house.
Oh, it is, right there.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was that close.
Yeah, and part of me, Mr. DiGiuseppe's comments were to put an 8-foot-high fence along that property line and also to use probably a 6-foot-high fence with like a stockade, but with some slats in it for the rooftop mechanicals in the back here, just to make sure that they are screened from.
Also, the lighting
Butters.
into the neighborhood would be,
Also addressed.
Yeah, and everything, yeah, that's right. So that was part of the
Very
discussion.
agreeable along the
Okay.
way and come back.
I'm sure they run into that everywhere, so.
Downcast, dark sky compliant.
Right,
Full
right.
cutoff luminaries, making sure that there's no light
Right.
bleed at the property line. But yeah, as Mr. Carmichael said, it's something that was addressed at that
Okay.
November meeting.
We're just looking if there's any residents on the front side.
Yeah.
I was thinking about Rich's house all the way down here.
Right,
Honeydew.
right.
Bagel place, so. it's all-
We've had a full lighting plan showing the illuminations past the lot line.
Yes,
And some of those did exceed it, and then you were going to bring those back.
That's
and
right.
provide screening.
But that's part of the planning
Yeah.
board process.
and we've done that.
They've been very agreeable on every aspect that we've asked them to.
So we have the size of the sign and I guess the composition of the sign. It's a standard type sign. I think we've probably all seen a sign like it.
Right.
Yeah.
The question I have is, are there 4 different sizes of these signs, or is it an infinite variety? Can you make the sign any size that engineers require you to make them? And I'm not suggesting that you do that here, I'm just asking, just so we know.
Well, in part, kind of to piggyback your comment, with your sign, you're asking for the higher height. Would that allow for more space on the bottom? You follow me? So
Yeah.
you can see maybe, where the school side is?
Could you actually raise that?
Yeah, of course.
Around there, please?
Is that the biggest graphic you have of the sign?
Yes.
Well, can you put it on the easel so the
Yeah, you
audience,
can put it on the easel, that's
people
fine.
can see
Yeah,
it
I
too?
can see it.
Non-board members,
So based on my experience, I can tell you that that is a much smaller sign than
Yeah.
the New Cumberland Farms look like grocery stores almost. They're
right.
huge.
The one on
They are
112,
grocery
Adam's huge.
Yeah, they're huge. So I do see them trying to conform.
Yep.
And still keep a proportion of what to represent Cumberland Farms.
And what is
There's
this?
definitely an effort there.
What's the open space underneath the sign? How big is that?
I think it looks like 3 feet 7 inches.
Height?
Underneath. Height, yes. From the ground to this first piece here.
Is that actually the ground that we're looking at? not
Yeah,
the
so
base?
that'll be the ground. There's a planter that's built up,
The planter, that's,
and then
So 3'7" is from
grade.
ground to
Yes,
the bottom of
correct.
the opening.
okay, so the opening is not 3.7, it's something less than
And
that.
it's coming 10 feet off the street?
I think it's 10.1, 10.1 off the right of way.
That's pretty
That's pretty
significant
far back.
for sight.
Yeah,
from the road.
sight lines.
Yeah, yeah,
We
yeah.
want to make sure.
Is that standard, that far back? Is that fairly standard?
Yeah, yeah, I mean, yes.
I'm sure engineers deal with it all the time.
Yeah, so the traffic engineers are looking, I think, again, if you're thinking about that roadway and how it curves off a little bit, and where you look at
Yep.
where the school's driveway is in relation to it, the school's driveway would be further out towards the road, so this would be even further set back from where those drivers would be at the school driveway exit. So if you're talking about,
Right.
you're here as the road goes, if you, school driveway, you've got maybe another foot or 2 feet, especially as people start to come out a little bit more.
So the concern of the sign blocking the driveway view has been discussed and
Correct.
everyone's.
Yeah, I
Okay.
figured it would be, but.
Yes,
to make
that's a
sure.
good point, though, yeah.
So the dimensions are here in the application. And feel free to ask further questions or further detail. I mean, I'm not sure we want to engineer a sign for them, I mean, you could always say,
Well,
gee,
we do
give us
have-
10% smaller, but I don't know that this is out of proportion. For example, the CVS sign diagonally across the street, I don't know what those dimensions are, but that's fairly large. That was approved by us also a few years ago, obviously, but that's fairly large. I think this one sounds smaller than,
It's much smaller than the one up on 140.
yeah,
Like, It's definitely smaller.
Yeah.
but I think this is smaller than the CVS across the
Yeah,
street.
That's just CVS, that's
That's more than
much.
14.
But
14
you see
feet.
that, but you see the space.
The clearance for.
Yes, there's no question about site view
Like to
blocking,
see.
right.
That's what we're looking at.
And we can have that siting discussion with the planning board next week, and we can make sure that we have a statement from our traffic engineer, just,
They would make that.
Yeah, I trust them to do the right decision on, I mean,
I mean, you
So
can
the
always
wall-
say, make it taller and increase the window
increase the
space.
window space.
So it's a trade-off, do you want to do that or not?
I mean,
And
that would be my only concern with the school drive. I mean, listen, when I got detention back in the day, I used to have to
What?
walk that section.
Who?
I used to have to walk that home, so I'm not just concerned with the buses, but,
It's the Walgreens sign in proportion.
you know what I mean? If kids are walking
smaller.
out there, that at least is, and again, that might be out of our scope.
Well, it's not, we get to talk about proportion
Yeah.
and sizing.
We have a situation here, which I just showed, where we just looked at the CVS sign, but if you look at the Walgreens sign,
Walgreens is small.
very small, fitting within our bylaw.
Their building is
Basically.
pretty closer to the road, though, and they have a side sign on the building.
I'll learn how to use Google one day.
My question, again, and this might have already been addressed, tell me if it has, with the school bus coming out of that entrance, the bus driver being at a certain height, can the driver see enough
Well, I
around
think
it?
that-
I'm not
Theory
worried
of
about
it.
that, I'm worried about the traffic coming out of CVS.
Oh, to take a or to take a left or a
You know
right?
what I mean, or just, that was my first concern.
Well, but that's,
It is set back 10 feet.
And I had mentioned that, I said, well, the setback is 10 feet, so I
Each
guess
vehicle
Yeah.
gets.
each vehicle should have a
view.
clear line of path. So I guess I might be, my
and there's
concern
the
might be
three,
over.
there's the 3-foot window there
Yeah.
for other vehicles who are lined up in
So I guess
queue.
talking about it, I guess I wouldn't, you know,
I think that's great.
I think we're
That's-
fine.
I mean, again, you could say, gee, make the window 5 feet tall, but that's,
Then you go
then you're
higher.
raising the
Yeah, then
sign.
you're raising the sign.
So it's kind of a trade-off that it probably isn't worth
Right.
it. I mean, I'm not offended by what's been presented, and
No, I think it's great.
I don't want to start playing with inches, that we don't know anything about.
No, yeah, after talking about it,
Yeah, I think the fact that it's set 10 feet back like it is on the curve,
the,
it seems like it's pretty
That's the
tucked away
Walgreens
there.
sign.
For example, Mr. Carmichael, remember
yeah, that's why it's so small.
a couple months ago, we had a sign cited
Down by
by,
Ace Hardware.
by the old Ace Hardware, the plaza that's in back there. Wasn't that only 5 feet off the setback or something? It was a smaller
Also
sign.
down on Old Colony Road,
Old
yes.
Colony,
and
right.
They wanted to be 5 feet, but it was raised a little higher. We had concerns about the high tension lines, so, yeah, I think they put it back 5 feet.
But I think they went higher because our concerns of the traffic coming in and out.
They did, I think they moved it back and they were agreeable to amend.
Yeah.
But-
This is also gonna be part of the site plan review process.
Sure.
of the plan
That's the sign that's gonna be located closest to.
Right, right. So we're integrating
the
our,
abutting property.
Yeah.
we're integrating our work
Again,
with
height-wise.
the planning board and the other
Yeah.
planning going on, so. let me ask if I can, if anybody in attendance has anything to say in relation to the plan that's been submitted for the new Cumberland Farm sign. Yes, could you identify yourself for the record? Yes, if you can, actually, since we have a sound system now, thanks to Norton Cable Television. There's a promo for you.
My name is Sue
Not worth
Lieber.
anything, but,
I am one of the abutters to the property,
and what is your address?
16 Seminary Way, so we are behind the location. The sign, I think it's comparable to the one that's on 140 next to Comcast, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know the height of that one. But I know that you guys had concerns about raising it, and then I'm just concerned if we raise it higher, how does that affect us? Because we are very, very close abutters to the back of that property line. So,
Understood, and I don't think that we were going to try to adjust it over what's been presented.
okay,
So if they've been cooperative about blocking light and undesirable impacts to you and back,
yes. I haven't heard any of that yet. We'll be at the meeting next week, but yeah.
well, it
Yeah,
sounds like-
perfect.
Sounds like they're trying to be cooperative.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So I just wanted to bring that point up,
Okay.
because I know the concerns are with the yell, but I do want to be considered as an abutter in the back.
Yeah, I didn't realize the houses there were that close.
Yes, yes, they're very close to that property.
To the left of the property from 123, isn't there there's a street that goes back there?
Yes,
Yes.
yes, and there's houses.
What is that street called? There are houses there? Couple of houses?
Yes, a couple of houses that are behind, so my house, say, the property goes here, my house is here, and there's several houses
there.
behind that,
Can you
yeah.
lift that up?
If you lift up that plan, it shows the houses.
Behind the old Haskin.
That's what I'm
Yes,
talking about.
yes.
Which I looked down, but I've never gone down there.
Yeah, so.
There used to be a gas station back there, I think,
My
50
property
years
line is
ago.
here, and
Okay.
then there are abutters that come up through here. I don't know, I believe this is a multifamily?
Yes.
And then there's further ones that are back. So there are houses. I know there's like Honeydew and all that across the street, but there are
Right.
houses directly around.
Okay, thank you.
Okay?
Thank you for your
Thank
input. Is there anybody else that wants to be heard
Thank you.
Certainly.
on the signage plan? For the record, nobody else from those in attendance?
That's the one next to Comcast. Much smaller.
Oh, it is. I'm thinking of the one by the highway.
It is the one by the.
No, the one,
Oh, the next gas.
the gas station, which is, that's not a Cumberland?
That's mobile.
That's like,
Mobile.
Is that mobile?
well, it's a red one. Red.
Okay.
Oh, so that one's the one up.
So this is the one that's
That's
next
by
to
the golf, mini golf.
across from
Right.
Alberto's.
Oh, that is
Right.
pretty small.
Do you know what the size is of that?
No.
Geez, that looks.
That's
way else
probably
a little
8 or
bigger.
9 feet. It doesn't have the double gas price on this image.
Far off. And this one will have the,
I mean, my only concern, I guess, having the abutter speak, I understand that you guys are proposing an 8-foot fence behind the property, but any light pollution at 14 feet high is the Cumberland Farms actually eliminated? The
This-
logo, the upper logo?
yes, yes.
That is
Yes.
over the fence height, really, if I was the abutter behind the property. You know what I'm saying?
It's illuminated, it's not a neon sign, it's illuminated from a light on,
Internally.
Internally,
It
it's
is.
any, it
It's
is.
like it's like a push through.
White sign,
It's like a, yeah, with
yeah.
Yeah, but they're not flooding it.
translucent
Right.
inside.
okay.
No,
I
what
thought
I'm
they were-
saying is if I'm living behind a property and I have an 8-foot fence behind me, and then I have 6 feet of possibly exposed signage, a white globe behind my house, you're gonna have that light pollution coming onto your property.
But how far is it away from the back of the property line? How many feet
I'm trying to
approximately?
kind of make sure we,
Because that cuts down on the
yes, on the
angle, of course.
Uh,
About how many
So it's
feet
pretty
is the,
significant.
how deep is the property approximately?
So the property is about 185 feet deep,
Okay.
That's pretty
and
significant.
you've got another maybe 35, so you're over 200 feet, I'd say,
The canopies alone are gonna.
Yeah.
straight back.
And the canopies
Yeah,
will be
yeah,
lit.
of course.
I believe it's under
The
our,
lighting around
And the canopies will be lit. too.
I know, so that's, I'm just
Oh,
trying,
right.
so the canopy
Oh,
is
so
all.
the sign would be
like,
here?
is
So
also
that's where the
within
sign
our
is.
provision, so
There is a house that's right, my
Yeah,
property line
electronic.
goes off, so there is a house that's right
Wall
here as well.
signs.
Okay.
So
Wall
that is
sign.
the refuses, I
On the
don't see
building.
them on here,
Building.
because I know my property line.
Wait, let's have one
into their driveway,
conversation.
but there is a house here.
Okay, well, look,
Yeah,
thank you.
no problem.
How high are the awnings above the gas tanks, generally?
Do you know the canopy height?
That's more than 14 feet, right?
14 feet, 4 inches, something like
So about as high as the sign? Yeah, they're usually very high, aren't they?
Canopies are gonna be higher.
I mean, to allow truck circulation underneath.
But that's not within our purview.
But it's something we'll certainly talk to the neighbor about to make sure that they feel like it's adequately screened, because I think the sign is one thing, but I think the rest of the site, when you've got, the canopy lights illuminating downcast.
That's my only concern, is if
Yeah.
if I'm a neighbor, and my backyard all of a sudden is lit up 24 hours a night,
Yep.
and you put an 8-foot fence up,
Yep.
again, we're not in charge of the canopy, we're in charge of the wall sign and the street sign, but I guess our street sign is not as
Right.
important as the canopy at that point anyways, so,
The street sign's not as intrusive.
not as intrusive, exactly.
that. So it's 14 feet, 4 inches from the slab, concrete slab to the bottom of
The bottom.
canopy.
To the bottom.
light
Oh.
fixture probably. Okay.
Some are very high, but I guess that.
So again, that's more planning board and.
Yeah. Okay.
It's in here though. They're
And,
requesting 4 wall signs.
yeah.
So
the
they're on
wall-
each canopy,
Yeah,
yeah.
so it is part of our,
And I can point
Sorry,
that
wait.
piece
I
out.
thought the wall signs were on the building.
no, they're on the canopy.
There are,
One on the building and one on each canopy, there's 3 canopies.
so there are,
Is that in the?
just so like full sign.
Oh, on canopy ends, I didn't see that.
Oh, okay, okay.
Full sign packet. So we've got the freestanding sign right here that we're talking about, so we're
Yes.
requesting the variance for the height, the area, and also the electronic message center. And then there are 4 wall signs. There's an 11 square foot wall sign on this edge of the canopy, and I'll show you a detail of what that looks like, right here. Another one right here. A 36.7 square foot wall sign on this facade of the building. I'll show
Which faces only the street, so.
this way, and the same thing here, facing
Yeah.
there. So there's nothing, nothing is facing any, a butter. The closest thing would be, maybe.
Show us the canopy signs. I can't picture what they are. What do they say?
Cumberland Farms. So I'll show you, and then I'll come back
Do
and
you drive by any of these new Cumberland farms?
Yeah, you'll see them.
Here, in other words, huh? Somewhere.
So you see, just there on the ends.
I see.
Okay, and
I can-
they're lit up.
They are.
absolutely.
I can.
Can I see the ones that are on the building? Do you have ones that are on the building?
And I'd ask you to show the audience too.
Yeah, of course. Got the building ones? Oh, perfect.
Oh.
So these are the canopy signs? Thank you.
But they're not bigger, they're not larger than the area of the canopy. They are
Here.
on the canopy.
Yeah, they're
Less-
part of the building structure.
Right.
Not like on
So
top.
they're not protruding upward or downward from
No, they're
there.
on the fascia of that canopy. And then this is a rendering of what the building will look like. So this is, if you were standing, let's say,
Yeah.
here,
Okay.
it's what you'd see, and then that
That's
would be
the-
mimicked
On
on
that side.
this side
Got it.
as well.
So where's the house, sir?
The house is
Yeah, off to your right, yeah,
back
back here.
here, and then there's, I think, that multifamily that we were talking about back here, and maybe another one, maybe to the left of this.
see it from the street.
Correct.
123.
This is one still in my work.
And they're putting up barriers in the rear of the property anyway. And I'm assuming that includes some
Plantings.
rubbing of
Yeah.
some sort and a fence, so that's not our purview here as well, so. Thanks for pointing that out, though, on the canopy, I hadn't seen that. And the signs on the building, of course, are on the wall, they're not protruding
Right.
upward or outward, so, again, I don't know that we have anything to say about these. We can say whatever we want to say, but I don't know that we want to go trying to engineer changes to what's been what's been planned
Well, we do have
out.
bylaws specifically about electronic message centers
Mhm.
regarding hours and brightness and everything else, so I've only been trying to make sure it is a commercial zone, village commercial zone where there's a lot of businesses, so I'm not worried about the street side. I'm just worried about the residents in the backyard and light pollution on someone's house, but we're addressing all those concerns, and the canopy lights themselves are what I would think are a lot more intrusive than our signage.
Right.
And the height of the sign, again, going to his point, I've seen Cumberland Farm signs 25 feet high, so I think there's a good effort here of trying to reduce the sign for the area. So, and there, you know, we just saw CVS has a much higher sign. Next door, the nail salon has a similar height sign, so I think they're being very fair with their request.
Yep, this would involve relief from the specific restrictions in the bylaws as listed out here. Any other questions or issues from anybody?
Well, 1 and 2, I think I'm clear. Electronic message center, we're gonna address that.
So
Subsequently-
that's the 7-second display minimum where 10
Yeah.
seconds is allowed.
Go ahead.
Could you kind of,
You had said 8.
Yeah, so I would, that says 7. I had amended it, it might not have got into you, I had given it to Mr. DiGiuseppe a while ago, but 8 seconds would be the request.
can you just tell us kind of in layman terms what that means? So Smart Pay is going to be rotating every 7 seconds?
Yeah, and I try to be careful anytime we describe these, because when people hear of electronic message centers and things changing, we don't want to, it's not fizzling, it's not fading, it's a static, Smart Pay member with a designated price underneath, let's say $1. And then every 8 seconds, it will switch, and it will say non-Smart Pay member, and then simultaneously that dollar will turn into $1.10. And then 8 seconds later, it'll switch back to Smart Pay member, $1.
So there are
And-
2 static images.
Correct. That's a fine way of saying
Is
it.
there any reason you guys are looking for 8 seconds versus the 10 seconds allowed?
It's, and I hate to general, but when I've talked to Cumberland Farms and I said, what is the time that you have found most effective? What time do you like to switch? And they said 8 seconds. Every 8 seconds is the preferred time. I think it's a balance of making sure that people see it, balance to get it not against it not being distracting to folks, where it's switching so frequently where people aren't getting it, or being too slow where people might get the wrong impression. I mean, frankly,
I just would rather.
I'm trying, but that's
You're
it's
seeking a variance, which is a
Yeah.
very high threshold. Just because they want 8 seconds really isn't a good enough reason for a variance. I mean, It's up
There are
to
so
you
many
guys.
variances here that I feel like.
there's so many.
Again, I'm not a sign designer, I'm not an engineer, but I also don't want, and I'm not saying it is a neon sign that's rotating all the time and flickering, but again, that is in my opinion, it's actually a distraction to see a sign switching
Yeah.
so often, so I would rather see that stay.
if you'd like it to be 10
bylaws
seconds, then
In the 10 seconds.
Sure.
Okay. I don't have a feeling strongly one way or the other, so the danger on the other end is that, as Jim was saying, you drive by, you see the lower price for an extended period of time, you pull in and you say, hey, I'm getting, it's 10 cents cheaper.
I'll be
here.
honest with you, it got me one time. Wasn't paying attention.
I'm just not sure that rises to the level of a variance.
I understand.
Right.
Sure.
Agreed, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if, I don't think I'm voting on this one, but as a city member, I would say, listen, 2 seconds to go underneath that zoning. I mean,
We're okay with it.
I think it's not worth it,
Sure, okay.
but
Can I ask you what the 140 is, by any chance?
do you know? I keep looking around and you keep telling me the same thing and it doesn't change.
I drive by that a lot, and I know I don't find it distracting in any way.
Yeah, I don't remember
But I
that
don't-
coming
I don't know
before
Yeah,
us.
I don't know.
Does that have a
I'll have to check.
switchable sign? Does it have? It does.
that's the
believe
one
it
that got
does.
me.
Definitely does. And I don't find it distracting. And I go there all the time, actually, and it changes enough that you do see it change, but it's not, but whether or not it's 8 seconds or 10 seconds, I couldn't begin to.
Right, I don't know if there's a discernible difference, and
You know, if there's concern,
Yeah.
keep it to 10 seconds then.
can keep it to 10
That's
seconds.
A
fine.
minimum of 10 seconds.
Right.
The other variance they're looking for that we need to discuss is, you know, our bylaw states shall not be lit between the hours of 11 PM and 6 AM.
Yep.
If it's gonna be a 24-hour operating gas station, then obviously it's a variance that's needed.
We can say, we can condition it as long as the, as long as it's open for business during those hours,
Yes,
okay? I mean, if they decide and, you know,
to not be.
to close
12 a.m.
4 hours a night in a couple of months, then, you know, the lights should go out, right? I mean, the sign lights that we're dealing with,
Agreed.
okay?
Are they doing anything with the lights at nighttime in general?
I think there is some dimming.
Some dimming?
Yeah, it's one of those things where they also have, and this isn't in the purview of the board, but one of these, when we're in neighborhoods or abutting neighborhoods like this, there are certain audio messages that we can restrict the time of when those advertisements happen to make sure that they don't start earlier than 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. and don't go past 9 or 10 p.m. or something like that, and the same thing with music. So they've done a few of these, and so we've got a couple of different ways to address, when we're able to talk to the abutter, what those concerns are. And so, yeah, turn around, and it's always finding the balance. I mean, we're doing one in Rentham right now where we're talking with the police chief to make sure that there is sufficient lighting under the canopy because of the maneuvers that happen, people taking credit cards out, money, et cetera, sometimes changing fluid. So it's finding that balance of not being obtrusive to neighbors, but also making sure the patrons on the site remain safe.
Yeah, the variances are quite large, what they're looking for, but it's also standard with that type of operation and consistent with, I think, what else is in town. Well, I don't remember signs on the other buildings, the other gas stations. I don't remember considering those. I'm wondering if we did at all. We should have, but I don't know if we did. Or if the planning board did that in our place when they shouldn't have. I just don't, yeah, I don't recall. But I don't find these to be inconsistent with how these are done.
I mean, I've driven late at night by the one on 140, and it's bright, but I don't think it's glaring. So I think they do a good job at.
Well, I also think that the approach of the village commercial bylaw states that they can have 2 signs actually on the property with 64 square feet of signage anyways, and they're gonna be actually only gonna have 1 sign at 68 square feet, so we're only really talking about 4 square feet
For that one, yeah?
for that portion, so I think it's all very fair.
Okay. So is there a motion in order to grant the variances except for the length of the electronic message center static image shall remain at 10 seconds minimum, not 8 seconds, and conditioned on the 24-hour lighting element being conditioned on so long as the premises is open for business during those hours.
I'll make that motion.
Yep. I'll second it.
Okay, is there any other discussion, any other limitations? I think we've talked about this enough and have confidence this is being reviewed elsewhere as well.
Right. Yeah.
So all those in favor of grant of those variances with those conditions? Aye?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you for the presentation.
You're welcome, and just so I'm clear, is it a 5-member board or a 3-member board?
It is a 3 voting member board.
Okay,
It
thank
is
you.
a-
When I only heard 3 and I saw 5, my heart sank a little bit. So. Okay, thank you very much.
We just grant vacation time.
First you get a crew.
But thank you for the detail.
Of course, you're welcome.
We'll write it up and get it posted.
Great, thanks a lot.
Good luck.
Rules are up 2-1.
I was just looking at it.
Rules are up
Just about to
2-1.
look at them.
Okay. We got one more. Next is the application for 122 West Hodges Street. And this is strange because our first was an application for 122 East Hodges Street tonight,
Oh, yeah.
7 o'clock. This is 122 West Hodges Street. The applicant owner is American Tower Corporation, T-Mobile Northeast, and of course, we're familiar with Attorney Dolan, who was with us, was it 2 summers ago?
It was indeed.
I was thinking it was just last year.
It seems that way.
It was in July of 17 that we got through that process and issued a proper decision then. Can you just describe what has changed? What
Yes, so I'll kind of,
And members who weren't here then aren't familiar with the.
Sure.
You might need to step.
yeah, let me,
Well, what's changed? Why are you back again?
well, so, let me just start with who we are first. So,
Mobile cell tower antenna under the Telecommunications Act of 1996.
that's right. And my name's Michael Dolan. I'm from the law firm of Brown Rudnick, and I'm here on behalf of American Tower Corporation and T-Mobile Northeast LLC, otherwise known as T-Mobile. By way of background regarding the applicants, American Tower is an owner and manager of wireless communications infrastructure throughout the United States and here in the Commonwealth. T-Mobile is a wireless communications services provider doing business throughout the country, also here in Massachusetts. So American Tower builds telecommunications infrastructure like a monopole, and then they do a lease with the wireless company who you may have service with, whether it be AT&T, T-Mobile, Verizon. In this case, T-Mobile has entered into a lease with American Tower to locate on this proposed tower. So you may recall, some of you that were with the board, 2 years ago, the ZBA unanimously granted my client's relief to allow for the construction of a 145-foot monopole telecommunications antenna facility on the 37-acre property at 122 West Hodges Street. Thereafter, in connection with the building permit process and in discussions with the conservation agent, there was some question about whether the wetlands delineation was truly accurate. We went out and hired another wetlands biologist to go out and perform the work again, and sure enough, there was a change in location. What that did was it put our access route and a little bit of our compound in the wetland buffer. And the conservation agent and all parties involved said, let's not try to go through Concom and get a number of approvals through that mechanism. Plus, there was a restriction in the approval that we not be in the wetlands or the buffer. We said, let's be a good corporate citizen and redesign this facility to get it completely out of the wetland and the buffer. So that process took a while.
Is the consensus that the wetland actually changed itself, the boundary, or there was a mistake?
A mistake,
Oh.
yeah. So, as I say, we've redesigned the project to keep it entirely out of the buffer. The redesign primarily entails relocating the proposed location of the tower 125 feet to the northwest, as well as installing a new access route to the facility. The existing driveway, which we were going to use before, that would then carry through with the additional installation of further a gravel road, if you will, to the site. A huge chunk of that was in the buffer, so we have to come in from a different direction now. As with our previous application, we're once again applying for a use variance and a height variance or such alternative relief as the board may grant. The last time it was relief under the 1996 Telecommunications Act. The only new relief we're seeking now is this redesign has triggered the need for another dimensional variance or alternative relief from the Telecommunications Act due to the 300-foot setback requirement from a residential lot line. The movement of the proposed facility now puts us 219 feet away from the closest residential lot line. The good news is that residential lot line is also owned by the Haskell family, who is the owner of the property here, as the several properties in front of where the proposed facility are also owned by the Haskells. So we believe that mitigates some of any concern that dimensional variance request involves. As one would expect, only moving the tower 125 feet, coupled with the height of the tower staying exactly as it was before at 145 feet, the radio frequency coverage from the proposed facility is nearly identical to what it was before. The gap in coverage we had has not changed, so this proposed facility will once again fill that gap in coverage as it did before under the previous application. The only thing I will add, though, is that we actually get a little bit better coverage this time because some advancements in technology allow for an antenna configuration in a way that we do get an incremental little benefit. So I guess that's the only benefit of us having run into this issue. Once again, this facility will help fill that coverage gap that I'm going to have our radio frequency engineer just review one more time again tonight. But primarily, there's coverage issues along Maple Street, West Hodges, and a portion of John Scott Boulevard. Once again, the monopole will be designed and has been designed to accommodate the antennas of up to 4 wireless communications providers, one of which is the applicant T-Mobile. Another bit of good news in the interim is Verizon has signed on with American Tower. They want to go on this site, so that's another carrier that would not be looking to build a tower in this area because we could all get one-stop shopping with this facility. Once again, we respectfully request that the ZBA grant the relief we previously received, given the minor changes in application and as well as the new request for a dimensional relief. So with that, I'm available to answer any questions, but first I'd just like Ryan Montederamos to come up. You may remember him from our previous efforts, and he can just, for those who weren't here before, give a brief explanation of what I mean by a coverage gap and what this site will do to help fix that.
And just noting for the record, the report submitted with this application, though, is the same report dated December of 16.
And I was going to give that out after he did his presentation, but I have an updated RF engineer's report and coverage maps that he'll be showing tonight.
Okay.
I mentioned to you that there's this slight incremental benefit with the new technology, so he's got the latest and greatest. The coverage gap has not changed, but the beneficial coverage we'll get is better.
Is the written report different as well?
No.
Okay, the written report is essentially the same as...
Essentially
The same, yes.
Okay.
It is the same.
Go ahead.
Okay. Good evening, members of the board, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Again, my name is Ryan Montederamos, representing T-Mobile. I'm an RF engineer who helped design the site. So from the previous, just a quick recap of how big our gap in coverage is. So this is what we have right now as an existing coverage with all these magenta dots representing existing T-Mobile facility that is currently on air on the AWS frequency, 21 megahertz. And gray dot here represent our proposed site. So the movement of the new location is hardly noticeable on this new plot. The only difference is since we came into to the redesign phase, then we have to apply the new design technique or the new design technology. Where when we were here a couple of years ago, we were proposing a 3-sector site. Now we're going with the new advancement with the new antennas that will not be interfering with each other. We're able to come up with a 4-sector site, so there'll be 4 90-degree separation on 4 different directions. The only difference is much bigger coverage in terms of the in-building. So this is what we,
The sectors, I'm sorry to interrupt, the sectors are all at the same height though, right?
the same height, yeah, completely the
And one
same.
thing just to note is previously we had requested 9 antennas. Once again, with this advancement, you can actually do, and they were in 3 different directions, the sectors. Now they're in 4 different directions, and you only need 2 of these, so we're actually dropping an antenna too.
I do have one question.
Yeah.
Because this is the site, I believe, we did a balloon test.
Right.
So I know we are using the same height pole, but did the pole change in elevation on the property? So did we go higher on the property or lower from what was proposed?
I will double check that. I believe it is probably very similar.
Yeah, it's the same
I just
elevation.
want to
I
make
believe.
sure that
Yes.
Right.
when we make the decision, that we
Yes.
stay within the bounds of
Yep.
what we, because that balloon test was pretty critical
Yep.
to what our decision was last time.
I think, based on what I was advised, I looked into the terrain. It's still the similar terrain profile that we have here. I think the movement is only like 145 feet away from
Right,
the
it
original.
just means that
The topography.
is higher.
Okay.
Is the
Well,
base
one-
of the pole going higher on the property, meaning the pole
Right,
projects
I'm gonna look
further?
at that right now while he finishes. And maybe you could explain the colors on.
Yes.
Mr. Dolan, I think at first mentioned 175 feet, then I heard
No,
125,
it's only 145.
145.
45 different? Okay.
145 feet, this was worth 145, nothing was.
No, I'm sorry, the change in location, was it 175 feet?
125 feet.
25?
Yes.
Okay. Got it.
And to note, actually, while you're looking that up, is that we only see the new plans in front of us. So we're stating it's gonna be 219 feet now from the West Hodges Street.
Correct.
What was approved originally? Is that my-
It was
I have it.
300, and I can pull out the old.
We have the old decision, I think the plans are attached. I don't know if I printed that out, though.
I have it.
I just wanna know how much further back it was and what
Yeah.
we're proposing now.
Will show you the height elevation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So just to continue, just to briefly explain what the legend and the color are. The green colors that we have is what we represent as in-building coverage, and the yellow represents in-vehicle, and then the white ones are basically just no coverage at all. So as you approach this white one within the yellow boundary, the coverage starts to disseminate or starts to fade. So the next page is what the proposed coverage is. So as you can see, it's much more wider, or the square feet or the square footage area of the coverage is much bigger. With the 4 different direction antenna, you have one sector here, 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 and here. So it's giving a much better coverage and capacity for people around the area and also commuters around the area as well. So this is the proposed coverage as if the site is transmitting. Right now, it's not transmitting, it's not yet built. And this is for for our one LTE technology, which is the AWS technology, 2100 megahertz. The next phase is what we call the 700 coverage, which is a much, on the low band, LTE low band, which has a much wider footprint. The only thing with the 700 coverage is we don't have much capacity as compared to the AWS or 2100 megahertz.
In both of those, you use 2 levels of megahertz
We-
simultaneously?
Simultaneously,
Yep.
yeah. So what
Some
we,
calls go out on one, some go out on.
yeah, what we used to do is we kind of use the technique of overlay. So all the capacity, all the much bigger bandwidth goes to the 2100 megahertz. And as a person travel away from the site, it's being catched by the 700 coverage, which is basically just the overlay coverage, so that if you're traveling on mobile, you won't get disconnected, or if you're doing something,
Just switches.
data, it just switches until such time that it goes to the nearest site. So this is what we have with the 2100 with the 700 megahertz, the low band frequency, and as if we have the site on air, this will be the proposed coverage. So it basically just cover much of the gap in coverage around this area, and it will give sufficient time for a mobile subscriber traveling within the area to go to the next existing T-Mobile site.
Okay, thank you.
So I got the answers to those questions. This site is at an elevation that's only 3 feet higher than the old one, and the old setback was at 360 feet.
From the nearest residence.
Yeah, which is the Haskell property again. And just as a reminder, I think there were even neighbors who lived 2 and 3 houses over who had come the last time, and the balloon float, they said, based on the tree canopy there, we're still 75 yards back. The visibility, it won't be an issue.
Is there any reason we can keep it at the same elevation at the ground level that it was?
Well,
3 feet.
we've got a real narrow area where we can put the compound and still be outside the buffer. And if you look, for
So I think what he's
instance,
saying is keep it where your proposed lot is, just don't make the,
I just don't want the
Keep the-
antenna to be
keep the
that 3
antenna-
feet higher.
so you're saying make the tower then 142 feet?
Or
So it would
lower
be
the
the-
elevation of your foundation, basically, lower the area.
I see what you're saying.
I remember the height being a point of contention, and we continue to go back and forth, and I would rather try and not make a variance for that height again.
Yeah, I think if we can keep this moving forward, I'll tell them 142 feet in the same location.
So it keeps the top of what was approved
It'll be,
prior.
exactly, it would be the same height.
Does that change any of the RF significantly?
2-3 feet different doesn't make any
It better not.
I'm just, it's simple.
Oh, I understand.
This was a long,
Oh, I know, people were concerned about the height and the
we went back
visibility.
and forth for a long time.
Yes, we did. That's why I'm saying,
Float that you're talking about? I'm not
Yep.
sure you're
They-
talking about.
excuse me?
The
Could you
balloon,
explain the balloon float? that you-
Yeah, so we sent a notice to abutters and ran an advertisement that we flew a balloon float to simulate the height of the proposed tower. It was, I believe, a 7-foot size bright red balloon. And from that, our field people went out and took photos all around the area, and then were able to superimpose what the tower would look like and actually create photo simulations.
it was done on a Saturday, so people up in the area could go out and see from their property or drive around as we did, right?
Right,
And
and,
see different angles. Could I see that top of that thing once it's there? It's interesting,
It was a
visual.
very good exercise,
It's
very
an
good
interesting
visual.
visual.
and it actually was such a good exercise that there were 3 or 4 people who came up at the beginning who had some questions about it, and after we flew the balloon, they came one time and never came again and said, we can't see it. You know, when you're looking up, first of all, this property is surrounded by a ton of trees down there. This is actually, as new tower sites go, this is as good as we're gonna get trying to, from a land use planning perspective, find a location for one, because there's just such a good tree canopy. It's not nestled in a real concentrated residential area, so the visual impact, in this case, thankfully, is negligible.
Go ahead. Did we interrupt?
No, those were the 2 questions, so I wanted
Oh,
to
the
answer
height
those.
I
and-
think
Okay.
if we can maintain that same height that we previously approved.
So in essence, it would be a 142-foot tower from that
Yes.
location. What other changes then? Just the setback to the residence?
Yep,
And it's supposed to be 300 feet,
yes.
From the residential lot line.
but the Telecommunications Act allows for waiver of that.
Correct.
Okay.
Under the same principles that the board employed the last time, because we needed a height variance.
No, we had a fairly substantial decision of 8 or 10 pages last time.
And we would agree to every one of those conditions again.
Yeah, but I mean, does it have to be
Including-
changed?
What's that?
It has to be changed? Or is it just a question of adding the new plan site, the locus?
I would think it would be a very simple exercise to recreate that decision again. referencing the new set of plans. And once again, we're offering space to the town to locate a whip antenna on the pole for the town's communication services.
So I was gonna suggest that the new decision gets written based on these new plans
Right.
that we have submitted, but they have to conform to our previous, of what we asked for,
Previous decision.
decision.
Yeah.
So you're offering a repeater for the police and fire, is that my understanding?
That was one of our
Yes.
requests.
It's,
yeah.
I think it's in our old decision.
It's in the decision, yeah.
There was a request.
I'm asking physically, are you going to rewrite that and submit it to us?
I'd be glad to
Are
if
we-
you'd like.
I mean, I still have the Word document. Is it
I-
literally the same? I haven't gone through it point by
Yeah, other
point.
than,
You don't want to grant a use variance, though, and I think you did in your last decision, because you're not allowed to grant a use variance, so you want to grant it under the TCA.
And we didn't do that last time?
you did.
But I think you have in there that you also granted a use variance, so you just want to not, because
Okay.
I did see something in there.
Okay.
So we just wanna take
I'll look
that
at
out,
that.
yeah.
Alana,
Council's
Or
correct.
actually, it might have been.
Council's correct. The last time, the use variance and the height dimensional variance were both granted under the TCA.
Yeah,
And we would respectfully ask that this additional DV for the 300-foot setback similarly be granted pursuant to the TCA. And
but the TCA simply says we can
you
get
can.
over our.
So we want to put that in. We wanna
Yes.
make sure
Right,
it's explained.
and if you'd like, and I don't mean to step on toes, if you want, if that's what you're implying, I'd be glad to take a stab at that for your review
If
and
you-
update the
If
decision.
you could update the document and show
Absolutely.
do a red line change. send it
Absolutely.
around, we can distribute it and see. If it's that and just plugging in new plans.
Yes.
Yeah.
We can look at that and go from there.
That's
I mean,
what
I
I'll
want
do.
to ask if there's anybody who is here tonight to speak in opposition to the plan. First of all, I'll ask. If there's anybody here who is in opposition to this plan, it's a relocation of cell tower that we had approved 2 years ago in July of 17. Or if anybody has any questions, can you raise your hand and identify yourself? For the record, none right now. Is there anybody to speak in favor of this? Yes, sir. What is your name?
Mike Haskell.
Oh, yep.
I'm in a butter to the property, and I was saying in favor of it.
Are you at the location that is the closest to Butter? Is that your residence, or is that,
One across the street from the other location.
well, who lives at that residence?
That's a rental property, sir.
Ah, okay. But owned by you?
Yeah.
Okay. So for the record, nobody to speak in opposition to anything that's going on. We had many abutters last time around, well, maybe a dozen or more people came and voiced their concern, and they were mostly concerned with the visual, and that was alleviated by that balloon test or balloon float, which was pretty well done. We
How
did
many
that.
meetings was it last time?
Half a dozen? There were other things, though, going on. There were some things that had to be realigned or redone, and unfortunately, you heard about the conservation issue.
So have you
So, Mr.
got your
sorry.
approvals through conservation?
We don't have to go through them anymore. That's why I went through all this.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
You
we're not
don't
com-
even for the
We're not
change?
coming back again to this.
What's that?
Hopefully. We're not revisiting another site plan again.
I hope the engineers got it right this time, and I'm told.
Council?
So one of the things that they have to show is a gap in coverage, and they're relying on a 2016 report.
That's-
So what
Is
I'm
there
handing
any-
out is the 2019 report and the updated coverage map. So this one is from 2019.
Well, it is.
So is there any reason why the existing T-Mobile sites cannot be improved? Because you said there was all this new technology that makes things better. So can you improve one of the other towers and reduce that gap in coverage?
As we speak, I mean, we already upgraded all our system.
Okay, that's all I needed to know.
Yeah, we already upgraded all our system, including adding the 700 megahertz frequency, and it's still
To the other existing towers?
to the other existing tower, because that's basically the first step that we usually do.
So all of the existing towers are current with regard to technology,
Yeah.
and there's still a gap in coverage?
Yes, it is.
Thank you, Council, for prompting that.
That's a good point.
Are there other questions from the board? Are all the cell towers, all the other cell towers all booked, used by all the available space, other carriers?
As to other towers, I don't know, well, it's not the case necessarily that every tower has every carrier on them. Everyone's network is a little bit different.
Yeah.
As I alluded to earlier, it is good news, though, that Verizon wants to come on here, too, and it may be that from a funding standpoint, someone like a Sprint may have a gap here, but they don't have the money yet to pay to install to come on this tower, and I'm saying that just speculatively. Someone like that could come along, too, and further maximize co-location.
When you talked about 4 sectors or 4 directions, is that one for one carrier, one for another, or do you all share you share them?
No, on one particular height, we have our antenna, 2 antennas on 4 different sectors.
Yeah, so
And Verizon
8 antennas at 145 feet, 142 feet are ours.
They're all T-Mobile.
And then
T-Mobile.
Verizon will take, presumably, there's usually a 10-foot separation between the carriers for physical and interference issues, and they'll then have their 8 or 9 antennas at that level, so
Down
it
below.
just slices down.
So the guy who puts the tower up gets the best spot.
Correct.
Usually, yeah, that's the practice.
Laboring war.
Okay?
Do you think that you will be closing this tonight?
No,
Okay.
because I've asked for a decision to be,
Okay, because we also, this says that we need attached as a copy of my qualifications. Do we have that for the file?
we have that from his old, yes, we do, actually. I saw it in the application. I didn't print it out.
No, with this,
That's a different RF engineer.
yeah, this is a different RF engineer.
Oh, it is?
The qualifications aren't attached.
So it says.
I'll bring those to the next hearing.
Yeah, I saw it in the
Wait,
submission.
It's
you
a
did,
That was the
you saw
earlier-
Ryan's.
It's a different
And then
engineer, if you.
another engineer signed that one, but he wanted to get back involved and come to the hearing.
That's why we
Oh,
need
I'm
them.
sorry, I thought this was
No,
this gentleman.
yeah, no.
I assumed.
So we need those.
That's his colleague.
Okay. Thank you again for spotting. Okay. Our next meeting is, as you heard, maybe you weren't here then, June 26th.
Okay.
You can come back for that?
Yep.
What's the plan if this gets approved? This is the last hurdle,
Yes.
and you would start in on,
Hopefully get a building permit and start construction.
when did you come to the realization last time? Was it soon after the decision?
I wasn't involved in that, I just got the call, oh my God. But that was probably 4 or 5 months after we got our approval, and then they had to go out and get another engineer, and there was a million things that had to happen. So,
Just for the record, anybody see the need for further test, balloon test or otherwise? I do not.
They keep it the same height, I don't.
And it was pretty conclusive last time. People were surprised, saying couldn't even see it when they were looking for it. So I think that would be a waste of resources. I don't think we need that. I don't think I need that anyway. But I don't want to speak for everybody.
Do we know if moving it triggered any more butters than last time?
Well, I was gonna ask the question, but I don't wanna open Pandora's box.
Triggered anymore? Do you mean notice-wise?
yeah, I believe the abutter list was the
Is it,
same.
yeah, exactly, is it the same abutter list, or?
Because it's based off the lot, not necessarily
You don't have to
proximity of the.
notice, right?
No.
Just-
I mean,
They did renotice.
they had to renotice, but if,
For this?
Yeah,
but for the balloon test, if you could see it from more than 300 feet away if that was the situation.
Yeah, but, and,
But
and
it really, 125 feet isn't really,
And to what he was saying about notice, though, the notice we gave the last time was based on the lot and then the statutory requirement for notice on that.
Gotcha.
The fact that the tower moved on lot doesn't change the abutters list.
That's what I was asking.
Yeah.
Okay. But this was noticed, this,
Yeah.
Yeah.
as a new application, which it is. Okay, so we'll come back on June 26th.
Right.
Can you get that draft?
A week before.
Yeah, to
I'll do
us.
that.
I mean, I'm sure it's going to be, it sounds like it's going to be fairly simple,
Yep,
straightforward.
and I'll redline it.
Yeah. If there's something there that changes,
Okay.
you can alert us.
If I don't have that on my system, do you think you still would?
Yes,
All right, well, if I can't find it,
Yeah.
I'll communicate with you.
yeah, and I'll pass that along to, the members to look at. But it was pretty comprehensive. Well, you have a copy of it.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
you
you
see-
can just convert it.
Yes, true, right. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Is there anything else that we can get to tonight on this? Any other questions you want answered? And nothing else from the audience? Just want to throw it open again. Hearing nothing, is there a motion to continue this to June 26th, let's say 7:15, being optimistic?
Motion to continue to June 26th at 7:15.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks again for the technical explanation, too. It's interesting. Sorry?
I feel like we do, but
No, that was the last, I hope.
I've got an extra piece of paper. I've got an extra stack of paper here.
What?
Elm Street.
Right. So I guess.
Hold it.
Right.
Hold on.
Yeah, I'm not.
Let me look at my agenda.
It's on the agenda.
The extra paper is in our packet?
It is.
I didn't go by our I printed out.
Yeah, it's that number,
Six.
Number 6.
Mr. Chairman, number 6.
Thank you. I've never seen this.
No, me either.
We have an application for 34 Elm Street?
If it's not on the agenda, you can't hear it.
Right, I'm just trying to get to the bottom of this. Edward Levine?
Yes.
Could we just talk to you for a second? This, thank you for pointing it out. I hadn't seen this. I went by what was in the agenda and on Dropbox.
Yeah.
We have an application here, but it's not on the agenda, apparently. Let's
Is it
just,
on the posted agenda? My computer died.
could you see, can you check the agenda that's online? Right, exactly. Because this one I printed out from a week ago.
I know the advertising was done, the letters were sent out to the abutters, and you received 7 copies of the necessary documents. And we were told it would be the last one on the list.
Okay, well, maybe it was updated.
I should get some Wi-Fi.
I know that it wasn't sent to me with a message, here's the new agenda.
On May 9th, we got an email from Nicole.
I'm sure it's at the
I
top.
think that's the one I have. but-
What's the address?
And on it, if you want to look.
I'll just see if the town
the
clerk,
bottom's
if it's
134
posted at the
Elm.
town clerk's office.
You know what I mean?
Your screen is broken.
Oh, yeah, I know. Have you seen my work one yet? Have you seen my work one?
Let's see.
I don't know,
Did
well,
that in the raid the other day.
if this is what I looked at. This is,
It's noted, I have an email on May 21st, and it's listed as one of the items.
Yeah,
It was listed on the Dropbox, but wasn't listed on the agenda.
But I don't
It was
know
listed
if-
in the list of the
Here's the
Dropbox.
but is there an agenda posted
see
later
that.
than the one?
That's what I don't know.
Here it is.
That's not what I'm asking.
No,
Go to the
open the
town,
agenda.
go to the town website. It's not,
Agenda.
it's not on the one in the Dropbox, 'cause I just accessed it a couple days ago.
No, it's
I'm talking about the town website.
If the last one's posted, it's 23rd.
Posted agenda?
Yes.
not. Is May 23rd?
Yep.
The one we have in front of us is what date, guys?
Stamp May 23rd,
Yeah, it stands 23rd.
stamp the 23rd.
And it doesn't have Elm Street on it.
Nope.
That's what I'm trying to, so this is the one that I was going by.
It seems like, it seems like it's the most recent. Based on-
We gotta go off of what's on the website.
Yeah, well, we can't, if it's not posted, it's not,
Where do I go?
to boards and committees, ZBA.
There we go.
And then the agenda should be off to the right.
It's not posted out on the, it's not.
Okay, so we don't know why. It's not on the agenda posted, and therefore we cannot have a hearing legally.
Under the open meeting law, you cannot, unfortunately.
So what is the process now?
Our next meeting is June 26th. We'll look into what happened. you're saying you know it was advertised and
It was advertised.
apparently it was
Yeah,
included on
they
some.
got, they got
We have abutters
notice.
who received
Yeah,
letters.
they got notice.
Oh, thank you.
So I'm confirming that on the website,
It's taken off.
it's not on the agenda posted on the website.
And what is the date of that agenda up on top? The stamp is May 23rd,
23rd, which is what we have.
is the one that, the most recent one posted.
Yeah, and the one, the town, the
Oh,
one
you
that's
looked
posted,
outside.
yeah, I went and looked, and it's not on it.
I did get an email of the copy of the advertisement in the
Yeah.
Sentinel.
Sun Chronicle, yep.
Right, Sun Chronicle.
Okay, so it looks like everything was done, but if it's not on the official agenda, we can't have a hearing.
No, but what you can do is you can announce that you will be hearing this on June 26th, so he doesn't have to then renotice everybody and republish.
Right, oh, so we can
So-
effectively,
You
Right
can't
now-
open it because there's nothing to open, but
But
you
I
can
can make
announce,
that.
you can make an announcement. I think that would,
So
is the
we
best
just
that we
kinda
could do.
My-
frozen until the 26th.
yeah, my
Yeah.
apologies for that. We didn't
It's
know what
literally a
happened.
clerical error.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, out of our hands.
Yep,
So am I allowed to speak on that thing if I'm not able to attend on the 26th?
No.
you can submit something in writing if you'd like,
Okay.
but we can't hear anything on it tonight because it's not a legal,
So who's that?
legal meeting.
Yeah.
Because everybody got notice, we're all here. We
2
sat
hours
through a
later.
2-hour meeting and he
I
took time
hear you.
off from the Norton Fire Department.
I hear you.
We're
Council-
like,
Our town council is affirming what we understand anyway. It has to be on the posted agenda. If it's not on the agenda, posted publicly,
But it's posted publicly in the paper?
it was posted publicly in the
Right, twice.
paper.
Right.
I hear you.
So isn't that public notice?
It is some notice. but
Under
it's-
the open meeting law, it has to be on an agenda 48 hours ahead of the meeting, posted at the town clerk or in a conspicuous
Someone screwed
place.
up.
So again, I asked who would I speak to about that for future, because as a town resident, I'm pretty unhappy right now that I just spent 2 hours
I was the
sitting
town
here,
manager.
waiting for it to be heard.
Yep.
And my husband took time off out of Norton Fire, so you guys paid extra for someone to cover Norton Fire Department to be here for 2 hours. So as a town resident, he's not gonna speak to that, but as a town resident, I'm pretty upset right now.
Okay. I can suggest that you contact the town manager's office. I can tell you, it's obviously the zoning office that made a mistake. We don't work here during
I know you don't
the
work here,
day, so.
I'm asking who can I go to
The
say to
town
them,
manager,
what the heck? I spent 2 hours out of my day, and my husband took time off work.
town manager.
Fine, then I will address it to the town manager as a
Yep,
town
and-
resident.
And we are sorry that we caused that delay for you and your inconvenience.
I'll let you announce so that I don't have to. be-
Absolutely. I will, we've stated publicly what happened. We will take this matter up on our next scheduled meeting, June 26th, at 7 o'clock, at the top of the hour, with our apologies to all concerned. All right? And we've satisfied our requirement there?
Yeah,
Nothing else we can do?
there's nothing else.
Thank you, counsel. Appreciate that.
Being generous, because you
Um,
probably should
don't-
renotice it.
We don't make that mistake very often. It's happened a couple times over the last couple of years, but we've caught it ahead of time, and we were able to contact the applicant in those cases. I didn't even know about it till somebody said, wait, we have this other paper.
And I remember seeing it a couple weeks ago when we first got that email, and I clicked on the links of the Dropbox. And that's why I was surprised when I didn't see it on here, and then when we got to the end,
See,
oh, it is
I
here.
got that email, but I just clicked on the Dropbox. I didn't look at the listed
Yeah.
items in the email, so I didn't
Oh, well.
notice the discrepancy.
I mean-
We could have saved them the trouble.
Check the website prior to that to make sure it's posted.
Yeah.
It'll be posted.
Right
but-
outside, 48 hours
How
ahead
long
of time.
beforehand?
It has to be posted 48 hours before the meeting. So this board meets on Wednesday night, so
Well,
Monday morning,
June 26th, I don't know if that's a Tuesday or
it's a
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
It is?
yes.
Okay.
Yes, it is,
yeah,
because
it is.
the 25th is a Tuesday.
Yep.
So on Monday, check the agenda.
But we will obviously take care to make sure it's there.
Or maybe send a reminder on Friday to the office, yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Try to put them on first.
Sorry?
Try to put them on first.
Yeah,
He did already, 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock.
Seven
Yeah.
o'clock.
That's-
if we had noted the discrepancy earlier, we could have notified them, but,
I just assumed it was dropped, I saw it.
yeah.
I just
Did the
assumed it
same
was.
thing with you.
I didn't see it.
assumed
I
something
just,
was up.
I just went right to the
I can
Dropbox.
tell you that, I think this is the first time I've seen this in 3 years.
No, happened last summer, but we were able to catch it ahead of time, and
Yeah.
they called the applicant and said, sorry, and it wasn't a big problem. But, it happens, unfortunately. I'm going to leave some things, I'll talk to Chris, to leave some things that were given, a lot of was given to us tonight, and we'll process that. Any other business to come before us this evening?
You have minutes.
I have not even looked at them. Why don't we take them next meeting? This was a long one.
Yep.
Thanks very much for all the participation, and thank you, council, for the participation. If there's no other business, is there a motion to adjourn?
Can we ask town manager for the official member, alternate member list?
I have it, and I can get it to you.
So who are members? Is it on that list?
I have it, yeah. I don't have it in front of me, but I can send it around tomorrow.
Just to,
Do you all have your official town emails now?
Mine's not working. Nicole was supposed to be working on it.
Okay. Using just your initial and name, and just didn't work?
Nothing was working.
Okay.
I don't have one.
You don't?
I do not.
Are you supposed to?
No.
Town by, okay.
No.
I'm not going into it.
Don't mix me up.
I can't check another
Is
address.
anybody?
No, I hear you.
Anybody else
Yeah, I
getting the
know.
Boston guy emailing to you?
Yeah, Boston Biz,
Yeah, what?
you know
Can we
what?
get that off there? What is that?
You can put a block on it. You have to go into the account and report it as spam.
Yeah.
And then Microsoft will just not give it to you.
That was terrible.
Yeah.
Or you can go and hit unsubscribe or
I
something.
did that,
Oh,
but then it
didn't
asked for
work.
an email and it was.
Yeah, oh,
You know
don't do
what?
that then.
Our emails were all brand new a couple weeks ago, so it must go to all Norton Mac dot,
Yeah.
all emails at that site.
I logged in, I had
You get like 4 a day.
35 emails. I'm
Yeah.
like, it's a brand new
Yeah.
email. How do I got 35 emails?
You can filter that out. I'll see how to do it tomorrow, and I'll
Yeah.
let you know.
I've tried. All right.
I didn't get any. I don't get any.
What?
I don't get any that I wouldn't expect to get to my email.
Have you
Good for you.
tested it? Is it working
Oh,
otherwise?
it's definitely working, yeah.
You're a non-person.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, I'm only getting what I would consider to be appropriate emails.
Well,
You don't need me anymore, right?
Maybe because
No.
I'm
I
new.
have an hour drive.
we always need you, but you're free to go for the night. Thank you. Thank you, council.
All right, I'll see you
Thank
next
you.
month.
Yes, thank you.
26th.
James, you at the Bruins score?
I'll see, I'll
Ah,
You already looked that up?
It should be second period.
And Chris, thank you very much for your assistance, as always. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
A second, I don't want you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.
God.